in our humble abode. May I have a call to order? Guess that clock's wrong. 6:31. We will begin with a pledge of allegiance from our Santa Cruz Garden students.
Final Devin, it is my pleasure and honor to introduce the one and only Devin Wilson, second grader at Santa Cruz Gardens, proud Dolphin leader, an amazing person, growing up to be doing amazing things. I promise you that. She has a wonderful family, the Wilson family here. We've got Callan, Waylon, and Jen, and Logan, older brother and younger sister. We've got grandparents and friends in the house. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our wonderful grader, Devin Wilson. Got it. All right.
Place your hands on your heart. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
SoCal Union Elementary School District mission. Staff, students, parents, and the community help ensure that each child develops the skills and character necessary for lifelong achievement and responsible citizenship in a diverse world.
That was wonderful. Ariel has an award to read. Can we read that about you?
I'm going to read about you, Devin. Devin Olson is an 8-year-old, second grade, natural born leader of the Santa Cruz Gardens Dolphins. Her teacher, Ms. Monica, says, Devin is an amazing student. She writes prolifically, reads voraciously, and solves math equations with accuracy. She is super responsible and supportive of her classmates' learning and volunteers in other classrooms to tutor younger students. When Devin grows up, she would like to be a veterinarian to see all the cute animals. Her favorite is the dog. She has 2 dogs, Buster and Posey, who were rescued from the side of the road many years ago. Her favorite things to do outside of school are play dates, swimming, baking, and cooking. Devin just received a cookbook as a gift and is trying out lots of new recipes. When she is at school, she loves to do art and to read. She enjoys reading to the younger students, like the first graders in the classroom next to her. Devin's favorite foods are fish tacos, chocolate ice cream with sprinkles, and Pizza My Heart is her favorite restaurant and field trip. She loves being in Ms. Monica's class and enjoys that Santa Cruz Gardens is a smaller school and kind of hidden. She enjoys Ms. Monica's classroom traditions, parties, and field trips. Also, Ms. Monica's book choices to read to the class are really funny and great. Devin feels that the most important character traits a human can have are to be responsible and to be funny. Congratulations on this honor, Devin. SCG is so proud of you.
If you want to come up, we've got some neat things that you can come and grab one and get one for your brother and sister. And we had, can we ask you a couple questions? Yeah, who wants to start?
Wow, I guess I will start. There's so much to learn about you, and that was such a great, thorough description of all of the amazing things that you do. I can't help but wonder, you're interested in cooking. I'm very interested in eating. What is the favorite thing that you've cooked so far?
In my cookbook, I liked my beef chili.
Beef, what was the last part?
Chili.
Chili. Oh yeah, nice. All right, thank you. I'm sure
Tasty.
they have other great questions about school and everything, but I was thinking about food.
Can you tell me about this beautiful dress you're wearing?
Got it from the fall festival on this school, and it's really great.
Wow.
Love that. Well, this is the most specially attired student we've seen in a long time. So thank you for dressing up for us.
I think that's so neat that you tutor kids that are younger than you. Could you tell us about that?
I ran to this one kid James. Either read or sometimes help him with his writing. Most of the time we. And not all, because sometimes she's busy and sometimes she doesn't even know the writing.
Ah,
In my class.
yeah, what grade is your, the person that you tutor in? Oh, in first grade.
I love the fact that you want to be a veterinarian. I think that sounds amazing. What a cool career for you to have in your life. Do you have a favorite kind of animal? I know you have a couple of dogs. Do you have any others or anything you'd like to work on?
Just dogs.
Yeah.
Just dogs. Okay, fair enough.
And is your family Giants fans?
No.
Well, thank you. It was wonderful to have you here. And like Callie said, help yourself to a
Yeah, you want to
little
pick out
toy.
something and
And if you want to get for your siblings as well.
you guys want to come up and pick your own thing?
What are these?
Putties, and they smell. They smell good.
I'll get a notebook.
Nice.
Actually,
Giant
notebook.
colors, but you're on the orbit.
Oh, for my best friend, did you get one?
Oh, yes. Oh, Lucy, yes. I caught it.
Best
Right
friends.
on, Lucy. And Devin, can we come get a picture with you and your family? Team Devin? All right.
Okay. Oh, so cool. Yeah, both, absolutely. You bet. You have to have a pen to be able to write this book. Oh, it's good. You got one, and it's a unicorn. I think she took the only unicorn though.
I think this one.
Oh, the panda bear? I like panda bears too.
I know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So fun. Lucy.
Yes, I have to have a lunch, so I look at
Hey,
everything.
thank you. Good to see you.
So nice to meet you and your family.
Lucky for us. Absolutely. Wow. What a great family. Hey, good to see you. Oh, wow. She's smart. Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
You guys are doing great work.
Oh, sorry, George, I just left it hanging out there after I.
How sweet was that?
Great.
I know, I don't think we need to.
Callie, we'll have to do roll call now.
After.
Yeah, right now. Yeah.
It's, I read it's second. Did I get it wrong?
Oh, I just always, you know why? Because I'm so used to closed session.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I forget.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, I got this.
I don't even know. I just read the paper.
Anchorman was kind of like that, right? Whenever they put on. I'm board president.
Is there anything on it? Tell us that we can make something happen.
Like, Amanda, stop changing the teleprompter.
Bye.
And we clear the room.
Yeah.
You're unplugged, is that okay?
Thanks.
All right. That was great.
That was.
Let's do a roll call, please.
Trustee Dickinson.
Here.
Trustee Jackson.
Here.
Trustee Gray.
Here.
Trustee Edmondson.
Present.
And we heard from trustee Donnelly that he would not be here this evening.
Thank you. May we have an adoption of the agenda?
Make a motion to adopt our agenda.
Is there a second?
Girl, second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Moving on to the consent agenda. May I have a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
I'll make the motion to adopt.
A second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, any public communications in the room? Don't think so. Anything on email?
Nothing on him.
Okay. Standing reports, we're gonna change it up a little. Can we start with the assistant superintendents?
We can, and I will begin if you don't mind. And mine is to pass since I have so many items on the agenda.
Okay.
And I would like to just thank the board for all the dedicated service and everything that you do for the community and our students and everything. So I want to start with that. Next, I kind of wanted to touch on the governor's budget real quick. I know everything's starting to come out. One thing that does stand out is the COLA is projectedly dropping to 2.43 versus a 2.93, which for us, if everything stayed as it's at, would be about an $85,000 difference for 25-26. We also have to take into consideration too the unfortunate LA fires, all of those property taxes, because that's a big factor when they come to factoring the COLA. That's a big part of it. So we have to see how all that's going to flush out too. So we may be even seeing a COLA lower than the 2.43 that's projected right now. The other items seem to be remaining fairly stable as far as like ELAP, Prop 28 and so forth. Those should be a status quo as of right now, and there'll be more to come. I have another webinar tomorrow and then another meeting the end of January. So just a couple highlights from there. On the flip side, the library at Main Street is looking amazing. The company Verco that did all the shelving had to come back out because they had mismeasured a couple areas, but they did go back in and, you know, reconfigured a little bit and added what they needed to and so forth. And it's looking beautiful. So we're very excited that that's coming to completion soon.
Wonderful. Yeah. It's now good.
Yeah, just a couple items before I get to my main point tonight. One, just to piggyback on our colleagues and friends in Southern California. Just I'm sure we're all thinking of them and hoping for the best in the wildfire tragedy. I will let you know that the superintendents across our county are working behind the scenes and are going to try to put something together for any kind of donations that we can do collectively across all 10 districts in the county. So we'll have something coming out about that because I know they're in all of our hearts and thoughts. The other item I wanted to mention is that our community voice gatherings are coming up. So to those watching out there, I encourage you to come out and attend. You can either attend, there's one at each school site. So this is what used to be our community forum. Now we're replicating that 4 different times. So they're like repeat events for the most part. And there'll be one for geographic convenience at each school site. The first one is next week, a week from tonight. At Santa Cruz Gardens, could be over in the multi-use room. And the idea is to have some unstructured time where the community can hear from me and ask me questions and we can have a good discussion together. So, and then there'll be one at each school site. If you can't make the one in your neighborhood, you can come to one of the other ones. They're kind of repeat events. And also in conjunction with that, there is the input survey, our district survey that informs our LCAP. And encourage all of our parents to fill that out as well as our staff. There's a separate survey for staff. So most importantly tonight, I wanted to honor Board Recognition Month. January is Board Recognition Month. So I want to say, as Allison said, thank you so much for everything you do. And just real quickly, I wanted to read from CSBA. So the California School Boards Association kind of oversees School Board Recognition Month. So if you'll indulge me, I just want to read this from them. January is School Board Recognition Month, a time to salute the more than 5,000 California School District and County Office of Education board members, the largest group of elected officials in the state that aid in supporting student success by establishing their local education agency's mission, vision, policy priorities, budget, and benchmarks. From the first public schoolhouse in an old church in San Francisco in 1850, boards of education have grown to oversee more than 1,000 school districts and county offices of education in California. From 8 students in El Dorado County's Indian Diggings Elementary School District, 8 students, to the nearly 530,000 students in LA Unified. Trustees provide critical support for California's nearly 6 million public school students. Trustees provide a critical accountability link between schools and the community and offer a level of accessibility to voters that is unrivaled by other public office holders. CSB encourages LEAs, community organizations, mayors, and other local officials to designate January as a time to recognize their hardworking board members and educate the public about the important role the school boards play in schools and community. So thank you for all of that, and just thank you for being such a student-centered, staff-centered board that models service leadership, that basically donating your time for the good of the community. And I really appreciate how much value you put on recognizing other members of the school district community. This is the night that we recognize you in that manner. And just thank you for your genuine interest in all workings of the school district. We really appreciate it. And with that, we have a little video to further recognize that. So,
Oh, wow.
George.
SUESD board on behalf of Santa Cruz Gardens, community, students, staff, teachers, we want to thank you from the bottom of our hearts for all that you do. We know you're putting in long hours, and we're so appreciative of your expertise, so appreciative of your time and effort, and so appreciative of your kindness and compassion, and your lens for social justice, for academic growth, excellence to our students. And we all believe and live this mission to the every day. We're very thankful to have you helping us here and navigate and lead the way. And only great things ahead. We're very, very thankful as a whole community. Thank you, guys.
Hi, board members. On behalf of our union, the Socal Education Association, I'd like to extend our heartfelt thank you and appreciation for all the work that you do. Without you, it would be impossible to make our school successful, our students thrive, and we deeply value and appreciate all the hard work for our students, staff, and broader school. Thank you.
Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for your continued leadership and hard work you put in for our students.
Thank you, school board, for advocating for us students. We really appreciate it for making a difference in our future.
Agradecemos profundamente a la mesa directiva por su dedicación para el bienestar de nuestra comunidad. Su trabajo marca una gran diferencia. Gracias.
Thank you, school board, for being my friend.
Thank you to the SUESD School Board for all the hours you put in, making the best decisions for the academic and social emotional well-being of the diverse students in our district.
Thank you so much for being a show hero.
Hi, my name is Lynn McCall. I'm the office manager of New Brighton Middle School. I've been with the district for over 20 years, and I am the current vice president of CSCA. We'd like to thank you all for your hard work that you're putting into ensuring our school system continues to thrive. Even though there's been tough and challenging times, we are lucky to have you as such a dedicated team. Thank you again for all you do.
Thank you so much. Muchas gracias.
And that obviously represents everybody in our district in the shortest amount of time possible. Arlo brought a few items, representative of Sage at Santa Cruz Garden. Arlo, would you like to share these with us?
Just being our time and evening to present, we just wanted to have a little bit of something from our garden to you all, and either whether it's on a desk or it gets planted in the garden, you have a part of Santa Cruz Gardens with you wherever you go. So this is for, we'll have an extra for Ted when he comes back. but
Oh, thank you. That's great.
Propagation to keep things growing.
That's really cool. Thank you.
Yes. And we also have stickers that are USH emblem design. Every year, we had two winners, a tie. So this is the logo emblem designed by two fifth graders, Wilder Hutto and Sophia Adam. So
Wow.
put that on a cool folder, coffee cup. Desk, right here on the wall.
Right on the laptop, there's space for it right there.
We need another one.
All right.
These are great.
You too.
Oh,
There you go.
thank you.
The last thing tonight, and I should have brought it up while we still had kids and families here, but we got a little cake. So maybe at some point during the long meeting tonight, we can partake in a little break and have a cake. take if we're so inclined, I'll put it right back in. Yes. Thank you for all you do. That's it for me.
Wow, I'm weepy, you guys. I think it's just so powerful to see the faces of all of just a representative group of the district of. I mean, that's who we're here for. It's emotional, yeah. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
What an honor, what a treat. Thank you so much.
Thank you for leading us.
And it's really our pleasure. I mean,
Yeah.
you all do so much of the work. I mean, it's this is completely unexpected because this is a joy and a gift for us to be able to do this.
Yes.
Tough transition. All right.
Okay, I guess we have things to do. And we would love to hear from you. Can we start with CSEA? Nobody's here.
Yeah,
Who do we
Enrique,
have?
let us know, Mr. Domo, let us know tonight that we wouldn't have a representative because he was a little under the weather and so recovering still, so.
We know good things are happening.
Yes.
Can we have a SEA
Yes.
update?
About Soquel Elementary, Soquel is focused on assessments this week and TK and K they started a little bit before us, so they were very excited to see growth of the little ones. We're all eagerly anticipating growth and preparing for data meetings and conferences. We're also excited for our kindness week and have been sharing our PBL projects with some grades incorporating AI into them, which is exciting after the training. At Main Street, staff is busy with assessments and preparation for upcoming report cards and conferences in 2 weeks. This year, conference week happens to overlap with Kindness Week, and the students will celebrate kindness with a different spirit day theme each day that week. The 4th graders at Main Street have started their investigation of measurement, U.S. customary and metric measurements. Big ideas in the investigation include larger units can encompass and be decomposed into smaller units. Unitizing equivalent measurements can be exchanged. Place value patterns occur when multiplying or dividing by the base and proportional reasoning. For example, recently students were solving how many ounces of pounds of chocolate are needed when doubling, tripling, and quadrupling a recipe. At Santa Cruz Gardens, Principal Carlo Albano was recognized for being a transformative Cal Hope leader. We are proud of his vision for our community. We kicked off January as our kindness month. Our living classroom got new redwood benches through the generosity of some 3rd grade parents. We have several stage projects underway, including data collection and compost cinders. At New Brighton Middle School, they're welcoming the SoCal counselors to help with 8th grade transition to high school. The SoCal High counselors will be present, pertinent, and will be presenting pertinent information to 8th graders during humanities classes this week. In 2 weeks, students will meet individually with the SoCal High counselors to schedule classes for freshman year. Otherwise, MBMS set a smooth start to the second semester. SEA extends our empathy and heartfelt condolences to those impacted by the recent fires in Southern California, acknowledging the loss of homes, businesses, schools, places of worship, pets, and loved ones. We want to express our deepest gratitude for the firefighters who bravely fought and continue to fight the blazes. Additionally, we wish to also extend our gratitude to the multitude of other first responders who have come to the aid of our fellow Californians.
Okay, thanks for that. Items from trustees?
Sure, I didn't have a lot, but I just want to say I'm absolutely humbled that you guys would even do that. I mean, compared to what you all do every single day, like I feel like we have it really easy. I mean, you guys put forth such terrific efforts and you're next on the line pretty much every day with our kids and everything else that's going on in the world and what they're dealing with, hearing about everything else that's going on in the world. So, I mean, my hat's off to you guys. I'm humbled that you guys would even think of us, you know.
Yeah.
Of the job that you guys all do. And thank you so much for all the effort you guys put into that. That's just, it's heartwarming. Thank you. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah. That's it
Thank
for
you.
me.
No,
Yeah.
that's exactly, no, I couldn't say it any better than that, totally. Like, that was very, very, very humbling and it feels like everyone else does so much work and
Yeah.
then gives us things to think about and consider, but we're lucky to be able to do what we do, and we appreciate the appreciation very much. So thank you for that, and how beautiful to see so many members of our community coming together. Thank you. I just have a little bit to report. I had a SUESD, Santa Cruz County School Boards Association meeting Monday night, the 13th. So that was a nice meeting where we had a guest speaker from CSBA Legal Services, an attorney come, and she did a presentation on Public Records Act requests. So I got some helpful tips and tidbits around that that I could share later once I get my scribbly notes more in order. But things that I know this district already does, and then just some helpful tips for board members around the way we communicate and just make sure we're all in good compliance. And it's also just nice in general to connect with trustees from other districts. We had a really good showing from Mountain School District, which is nice to meet some of those trustees. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Just on my end, I'm looking forward to the community voice gatherings. I'm not sure I can go to all of them, but I'll definitely go to a few of them. So thank you for putting that together. Looking forward to it. Great.
And yeah, just thanks for that video. It's really touching. All right, moving on to presentations. We have a presentation from Principal Albano, Santa Cruz Gardens regarding school programs. Thank you. Have a
Thank
wonderful
you.
night. Bye.
Hey, honor and privilege to be here before you all. Leaders of our district, our wonderful esteemed board of trustees. I think, we honor that time is precious, in terms of the video, and we just honor your even keel, your expertise, your connection to our schools, even as parents. So just know, it's heartfelt and real. We really do appreciate you all in terms of just your discussion. We know you go long nights sometimes, and you don't have to, and we appreciate putting yourself up for election to think about the multitudes of children that we have, the diversity that we have, and thinking about a brighter tomorrow, and starting with it today. So thank you all very much. It is definitely my honor and privilege to be here second time as the principal of Santa Cruz Gardens Elementary. I also want to just make a mention that the resolutions and supportive teachers that you've all passed, myself as a teacher, have always been really importantly felt and received, just knowing that we're getting that kind of support from you all as well as from my parents. So as a teacher, as a principal at Santa Cruz Gardens Elementary, it is definitely a home away from home for me and for so many of us, right? School is that absolute second home. And I want to just kind of take a little gallery walk through some of the pictures that we have here. Last year, we did a retreat in the springtime and came up with a new tagline, which I believe I mentioned a bit ago. Here we grow is our tagline. And thinking a lot about our work today for a better tomorrow, thinking about all of the things that you had mentioned, Trustee Dickinson, in terms of the environment, in terms of all the things that confront us today. We believe in a mission statement that talks about being an eco-literate, critical thinker, empowered through nature-focused education, through community partnerships and inclusive support for a regenerative and socially just future. We believe, for our children's sake, that regenerative future is absolutely a possibility, and always a possibility is something that's happening before us. It's happening in our project-based learning. It's happening in the way that students explain, collaborate, talk. It is an absolute inspiration to see the work that the students, the teachers do, putting their whole selves, no matter what the days brought, no matter what happened at home, they're coming with greatness, and we're working with them through many different avenues of TSS that we discussed a lot throughout these past years. On the top left, you will see the beginning design and creation of our makerspace known as the Sage Innovation Lab, something that was spearheaded and really a good collaboration by Assistant Superintendent Jessica Kiernan, really thinking about leveraging some of our money, our community, working with RAF, Resource Area for Teachers, to create a phenomenal learning zone for our fall science experiments and our project-based learning, as well as a place for our student leaders to meet and have some real life discussions in a situation room kind of scenario. As you go to the right, you will see Arlene working on installing those brochure guide, trail guide boxes. And I know some of you have had a chance to walk the Chaminade trails and see these fantastic creations that Brian literally took some fence posts and panels and created, out of very little. We have these amazing guides that we're continuously hearing amazing things from the Chaminade. You may have seen even a NASA Somebody who was staying over had seen these cool trail guides and mentioned how amazing it was to have something that made this hike so much better and connect to not just the trail, but the zones of the trail. We have our, obviously project-based learning is very much about learning through an expertise. So they have ecology, they have learning of the different zones, whether it's deciduous, meadow, etc. So please, if you've not had a chance, check out those amazing trail guides throughout the Chaminade. Example and exemplar of project-based learning happening in the gardens. We also continue to do our fantastic nature journaling and have a fantastic relationship with the Chaminade and using those trails. So to the bottom left, students having the opportunity to just go on the other side of the fence and explore the blue and red loop and natural phenomena throughout the seasons and having a strong connection to nature. And curiosity, of course. As you go to the right, that is the sunflower room and a read aloud happening. You can kind of see Kelly at the first to the left there, reading to her TK students in the sunflower room, which is seasonal and will come back in the spring. And then to the right, we have the Kelvin survey analysis by our student leadership, which has been really strong work happening last year and continuing through this year. We'll talk more about that in slides to come. Right. So the overview for today, I know I've got to keep it to about 15 minutes. I'm going to do my best. Let me know. We're focused on the columns, the areas, categories: learning, social emotional learning, and culture and community. And in learning, we'll be talking a little bit about our premier program, Science and Guarding Emphasis, SAGE. We'll talk a little bit about the work that we're doing with Jeff Weir's academic top conversations with the multilingual focus, and the agreements and initiatives that we're doing through our data-driven school site focus on our data, our academic data. Social emotional learning will be focusing on the work that we do in conjunction with counselors through Robinson and the counselors throughout the district, being a Kelvin focal site and offering these pulses, these surveys that we give to the teachers, the students, and the families of our community, and the continuing development of MTSS. And then in culture and community, focusing really on what it means to build a 21st century leader. We've all heard that saying, right? We don't know the jobs necessarily that we're creating, but we can create the characters in our students, and those characters to us are the ability to speak and listen well, to defend an opinion, to be open-minded, to be able to collaborate very well, to be able to work independently, and absolutely to have the ability to ideate, to have that growth mindset, to start somewhere knowing that there is no failure, there's just continuing to get better. And we believe that there's an amazing synthesis we're all very passionate about through the SAGE program, an engineering lens, and tying that into our academic work for all students in a way that is equitable and inclusive. And really focusing on Santa Cruz Gardens, to me, a passion for me is always about community and using our school as a community hub and seeing how we can offer. And now we're starting to see really, really cool things, as you may have seen in our latest dispatch. As we offer, our community offers back. We had an amazing donation this past weekend, brand new benches. One of our parents has a connection to a redwood mill. So we saved thousands of dollars there in that donation, and two parents of CC, second grade, Jim and Kelly, created a fantastic set of benches for our living classroom. So students were kind of falling back without a backrest, and they're kind of low to the ground and getting older. We'd love to have you come by and see those new fantastic benches that have been installed just this past weekend. Students are very, very excited. Very thankful for our mutual focus. And to get into our academics. So we really do believe in iReady's ability to really customize and focus on where your student is at in math and reading. So our ability to use iReady on a daily basis, our ability to use formative and summative assessment through things like FMP, being an example of formative assessment, and CAST, of course, being the overall summative assessment, but also having our unit assessments, our teacher-driven assessments, and our computer assessments, allows us to have these data team cycles that I believe other principals are talking to you about as well. We're very grateful to have those principal leadership meetings where we're discussing best practices there. And we'll have another data drive cycle meeting with roving subs. We meet with grade bands throughout the day. Myself, Sue Robinson as a counselor, Tina Bonner, who is our ELD teacher, Karen Yee, who's our reading instructor and interventionist, and the teachers of the grade level come together to discuss the latest data. So as we go through our parent-teacher conferences, as we go through our report cards, we'll be talking more on the winter data cycle. We have fantastic district and site-based professional development. At the site level, we now are beginning to have in-house SAGE professional development, which has been fantastic. Jay Chioda, who has been a longtime science teacher and lead, has been helping to lead, really just orienting new teachers and old teachers to the way that outdoor learning happens, the benefits of it, overcoming some of those areas you may be wary around classroom management, et cetera. We'll also be having site-based professional development, more on nature journaling and more on project-based learning as we move forward through this year. I'm very thankful, of course, for the fantastic UFly, momentum, math, really great district professional development that continues to happen for us to build and collaborate on. At Santa Cruz Gardens, we have amazing ELAP opportunities that teachers are proud of, that parents and students are very thankful for. We have 2 gardening classes. We have a strategic games and tutoring class. We have a PE and tutoring class. And we're just very thankful for the ability for students to have a place to go that's safe, for opportunities for our students who are unduplicated, who have different needs, to have a safe place to learn and continue to grow after the school hours with trusted teachers, build really strong rapport outside of that structured school day. And in terms of intervention programs, we are so thankful for Tina Bonner, who's an absolute leader at our campus. She's been a longtime teacher, parent of students at the Gardens, and also kinder, as well as just having a plethora of experience with multilingual and a passion in learning more, as well as a dynamic duo, Karen and Ely, who operate at our room 43. The students love them. They hold lunch bunches. They have a fantastic rapport with teachers and collaboration. We continue to work very closely together on this work of supporting our multilingual understanding as an absolute area of focus for us as a district. And as you've heard probably as well, that UFly is fantastic. UFly is really bridging an important gap for us to be able to see differences in spelling, see differences in reading, the idea of phonetic understanding, and getting to that goal of having strong readers by 3rd grade. Like that's a very important benchmark. We do believe that UFly is showing some extremely important gains. We're very thankful and hopeful as it goes forward, and being year 2 or 3, it's shown amazing growth already. In terms of our ELD resources, we have a cohort of 7 teachers right now. It is the largest cohort of one school in the county office attending the Jeff Spears Academic Talk Series. You may have heard a bit about Jeff Spears, but I highly recommend checking out some of his work. He's a Stanford professor with 30 years of evidence-based teaching and research in the field. He is doing a PLC and a series of what's called Academic Talk. And that basically focuses on how do we allow students to support one another through talk by being stronger with their explanations and by being clearer. So we focus on stronger. You can see the support hand signal. We talk a lot about the shaka, and now we're trying to grow stronger for teachers to point to a student, talk about stronger or clearer. And what that does, right, when you think about it, any argument, any proposition has to have strength and clarity. And the most important piece, according to Jeff Spears and all this evidence, is that students are talking for more than 2 sentences. Students reaching towards speaking for 2 minutes. And that happens through really good listening. So teaching the students the importance of listening, and you add on more. You give me a con to that. What is an example? Those are really strong talk moves. And what that does is it creates a strong sense of learner ownership and learner identity. So tests aside, we are very passionate about the endeavor of creating learner identity. Students understanding they can own ideas, they can defend ideas, and they can collaborate to build on ideas. There is another Jeff Spears, the second to last one of the year coming up. We are having site meetings. Every staff meeting we focus on a section where we'll show a video of example or an exemplary moment in the classroom where we have kind of a give and receive across a range of subjects across our grade levels. So it is everything from TK to 5th grade, and we hope onward as they go to school and high school. Yeah. All right, and then we have our science and gardening emphasis, SAGE, our premier flagship program. We're so proud of the work that's been happening, the connections that we've been making, the networking, countywide, statewide, and even nationally through Ocean Guardian, OA program. So just a couple of highlights for us. The Sage Innovation Lab and Makerspace is absolutely fantastic. We continue to have a really great relationship with RAPT. And we do have some parent alumni who continue to be interested in supporting this program in lots of different ways. So we'll be having an influx of materials, particularly engineering-based kits that are aligned to TK through 5th standards. So we'll be getting those kits coming for the second half of the year that we're very excited about, making full use again of our makerspace in the way of engineering as well as project-based learning. Part of that and our FOSS science kits doing science labs and allowing a space outside of the classroom where parents can help set up, get a little messy. So great place for our FOSS staff as well. Project-based learning, closed swap has been an absolute success. Outside of our winter holiday concert, we had basically like a Goodwill thrift shop happening on the lunch tables. And all of our clothes were pretty much gone after that. It was absolutely phenomenal to see parents and kids just so happy walking away with grocery bags of clothes. And of course, you know, along project-based learning, Miss Monica in second and Miss Kelly and TK are teaching their kids about fast fashion, about how fashion ends up somewhere, about how these are all material items. Why not try to reduce, reuse, and recycle baseline fashion? And that fashion can be really cool as being, you know, thrifting and sharing. Garden installations and outdoor zone activations. Again, we would love to continue to offer tours anytime to the fantastic places that are activated and being used on a weekly and daily basis. Of course, Miss Jade in the living classroom, having an opportunity for kids to start in room 51 and go to the living classroom with these awesome new benches. We're doing food tastings this week, oranges that are growing in the garden, pineapple guava. So students that are really learning more about healthy eating as well as just getting more comfortable with different kinds of tastes. Well, some of my favorite citrus for sure. And yeah, just the idea of empowering environmental stewards, some of the field trips and the networks that we have, talking to, you know, field trips going to the waste plant, going to the recycling plant, graveyards. Talked a little bit about the trail brochure guides and a very great example of Shaman Resort. That's one of our local organization partnerships. We got to be a tour stop for the NOAA Ocean Guardian Conference. They'd seen the work we were doing all throughout last year and the partnership was happening and wanted to have other schools come visit, which felt really, you know, we felt very seen. We felt really inspired by having a circle of many different impassioned people who are working in different areas of schools as well as nonprofits and companies around environmental stewardship. We're very thankful for the district to believe in us and to offer us a donation earlier in this year. And I want to thank you again for giving us our SAGE program a donation of $5,000. And the Ocean Guardian being year 2 has given us $4,000 to continue on line item projects that we're continuing to work on. And I'll just make mention that the Future Leadership Institute of Sustainability run by Anthony Sandage at the county office is a lot like PBL 101, which you might have heard of other schools talking about, except it's just a little more ground level and there's just a little more direct networking. So we're very grateful to have 6 teachers involved in the Teacher Leadership Institute. Some are mentors now, and it's allowing us to continue to grow our PBL and having really strong connections with other schools and teachers. We are now a green certified school. We just got our plaque today. We're very thankful for that and got to be acknowledged by Manu Koenig earlier this month or last month. And we continue to just grow capacity for SAGE and trying to instill traditions, our site-based PD, those stickers that came out of SAGE Hype Week and just these activities. We're really just trying to, what is SAGE? What is SAGE to you? Doing it through art, making sure parents are aware of it, making sure that the word is out and parents, you know, school site council and otherwise are really interested in learning to really SAGE as a really important, credible and integral part of Santa Cruz. And it is a beacon to us. It is an example and a model of teaching and empowering students with leadership and connection to them. So as we go into our data dive from the fall, we discussed as a team these 6 important pieces: academic conversations supporting strong grand theory, which we spoke a bit about with the SUESD and continuing to build capacity within our site with our great cohort and our teachers that are practicing. We know the importance of iReady and how it can really be an indicator of, you know, we don't want to teach to the test, but we know it is also standards based and important to continue to have students reach according to their level the greatness that they can. CAST at the end of the year, but of course, just reaching towards proficiency on survey levels. We know also that in writers workshop, we need to make sure that our performance rights or on-demand rights are happening on a regular basis, not just for CAST as one performance task area, but that a student can really show the summation of their knowledge in a unit or throughout a unit, and teachers are able to bundle those, we talked about in our momentum training, to their small group needs, whether that's around craft or conventions, etc. And so then also our target student focus, each classroom has a group of 4 to 6 students that they feel they want to be the impetus of their planning, right? So starting with these students who have different needs, whether it be behavior, whether it be language, background, we want to make sure that they are at the beginning stage of our planning. And we are noticing the difference and making sure that we think about that student and learning what they need. It's a better day for all. And that student is learning a whole bunch and that relationship is stronger as they're supported. We also feel very strongly that, you know, we don't want to just throw a CAST test. It's a beast of a test. We want to make sure that we're orienting them throughout the year by offering in 2nd to 5th grade, particularly these CAST style practice questions. These responses to reading and these math multiple choice questions, they might, you know, we do such fantastic work, we wanted to show up on the CAST as well. So we want to make sure that we're orienting to those type practice questions. And again, we all know the greatness of UFly, really hitting phonics and doing it in a way that involves body and spelling, sounding out syllables. I think that it's really just built such a strong synthesis of teachers, and I think everybody is just locked in stuff. So it's felt very powerful in that way. Another really important program to me that I am passionate about and to our staff, I am sure, is social emotional learning. We understand the importance that these are traits, that these are skills they will use for the rest of their life in the 21st century. We would love for all of our students to know compassion, empathy, emotional awareness, regulation of self, and being able to respond rather than react. So we all want that for the work. We want to make sure that we're offering that through these tools. We believe that Ruler offers a lot of these skills. We know that Second Step and some of those other places that counselors have access to as they walk into the classroom and teach is also a place where we're getting a lot of those skills happening. Being a Calvin focal site, we have offered fantastic surveys 3 times a year for our students. We are now doing it for our parents this year as well. Very excited about that. Very, very excited. One of my definite passions is student leadership in the agency. We've had our students fully involved in this Calvin Pulses, which I'll talk a little bit more about in just a moment. Thankful to see in the universal screener where students may have more needs. And again, just like the importance of a counselor at every site, the ability to collaborate with teachers, the ability to do lessons and model for teachers, but just to be that consistent presence of the importance of social and emotional awareness. Very much so around outreach to parents and supporting our guardians, knowing that it can be very challenging out there, and we want to make sure, again, we're a community hub. I think Sue Robinson is absolutely fantastic, compassionate, very approachable, and we have ongoing relationships with other nonprofits and county office groups like Companion Project, counseling happening on a regular basis. Outside of the skills that we offer from Sue, we do have other resources for our parents and students. And of course, the continuing ongoing development of MTSS with a site leadership team and focusing on our surveys and grading ourselves and seeing where we need more help, where we need more growth, and where we're doing. So this is an example of the domains of the parents and students for our Kelvin pulses. You will see here, I know the laser pointer doesn't work that well. We have overwhelmingly positive response from our parents. So our school climate and culture, we're at a 98% favorability. School connectedness 97, school safety 95, conditions for teaching and learning 94, empowerment, just ways to get involved, making sure everybody is aware of those ways to get involved. We're a little bit less, but still a favorable score. Now that we've done more than one Kelvin pulse for our students, you can begin to see comparisons. So it's very easy to use and very easy to see some of those differences and discrepancies. But again, we see pretty great stuff coming from our students. This is just for 4th and 5th grade, and we're talking with Kelvin and CalHelp about offering it to 3rd grade, knowing that this is more social emotional focus. Focus on safety and connection, focus on experiences of cultural linguistic, the responsive environments, emotional experiences, opportunities for student voice and leadership, resources for coping. The only one that went down, as you can see, it's kind of small over here, but went down by 8, is resources for coping. And if we were to delve in a little bit deeper on those questions, you can learn a little bit more that our 4th and 5th graders really are dealing with real life, right? And that they're figuring out like the most amazing things that they're saying in these student leadership meetings on analysis. We would love to perhaps have them come in and present. We have been invited to present at the Cal Hope Symposium in May with a group of 4 students. We're very excited about that. Myself, Sue Robinson, Julianne Wolf, our speech and language pathologist. Julianne and Sue do most of the student leadership work, and I am supporting as well. But something to think about. We might have them come in and love to talk a bit more about our green team, but our student leadership work around really analyzing what are the next steps, where are the areas of need, what can we do? We focus this year, the focus is really going to aim in on skills that allow students to understand 2 things: how to advocate for themselves, how to ask for help to an adult or to a peer, and also to make sure that students are understanding affirmations, understanding ways to stay positive in a world that can feel kind of bleak. If you watch the news or hear something bad at home, how do I stay strong? How do I stay positive though I feel very vulnerable? So again, just amazing leaders in gardens. This is a really great synthesis diagram of some of the work that we're doing and we believe in. How can we use our integrated work in equity and social emotional learning to improve outcomes for our multilingual students, particularly? We have the English Learner Roadmap, California English Learner Roadmap. Principle 1 is really all about how we welcome, how we make sure students are feeling seen, how we establish partnerships with our school and families with welcome culture, as well as working with students that are both multilingual and have some type of disability. You can also see on the right, a familiar looking graphic of the Ready for Rigor framework, which is something we've spent a lot of time with. I'm very proud of in our district for years, and just in terms of learner partnerships, awareness, how we focus on student information processing and community. And in the middle, a focus point of transformative social emotional learning, which has a really big look at the construct of identity, agency, belonging, collaboration, curiosity on those competencies to your levels. So we believe in this synthesis. We believe that it's happening at Santa Cruz Gardens through the focus of EL Roadmap. I'd also say that Principle 2 is the Jeff Zweer's work and really focusing on the academics that are happening in the classroom, how we're supporting that curb cut effect, where if we support the multilingual learners, we're supporting everybody else, and it is really true. When you support those talk moves, everybody is benefiting. And as we wind down, culture and community, fantastic ELAC opportunities. Very thankful to have that offering to our community, our ELAC and DLAC. Ability to talk on a regular basis about needs, about input from our multilingual families. Our school site council continues to be extremely strong. Last year, we were able to create a mural. We were able to really focus in on some of those areas of what we felt were strong needs and being parent-led. We are going to do another information night around IEPs with Director Carissa Lemos, as well as a fantastic preschool SDC teacher, Laura Furrier, at our school, and focusing on parts of the IEP. If you've ever seen an IEP or been to an IEP meeting, they're lengthy. It does feel like a fire hydrant that you're drinking out of. And you just really want somebody to kind of help break down and make you feel more empowered, right? So these are what this college report is about. This is what your role is. This is the people that you can bring to these meetings. This is what you can do before the meeting. These kinds of things to just really support our parents. We did a wonderful ruler university night last year. We'd like to do it again this year. So again, just reaching out to our parents and offering support that is educational and fun. And yeah, again, my passion is really working with our students, our fantastic student leadership team. In 4th and 5th grade, we have an upper and lower grade green team now that is again focusing on zero waste at our site, working in collaboration with CNS, focusing on, again, just spearheading some of those project-based learning movements and our partnerships. And Peace Pals is focusing on conflict management with the older kids go into the younger kids recess and kind of walk around and be another support. Obviously, our bigger kids are worshipped by our younger kids, as tends to happen. So they have a lot of weight, sometimes more leverage than our supervisor and our recess coaches, because they're so looked up to. So we really want to leverage that and empower them. And lastly, we have monthly awesome school-wide character and sage assemblies, first and second Thursdays of the month. The sage assemblies are always in partnership with Your Future is Our Business. So we have really cool presentations from different local living nonprofits and companies. We actually had Joby come and talk a little bit about the future. The flying cars are now here and they're starting to launch starting next year, it sounds like. Kids took them to task and said, is it affordable for people? Is it gonna fly at night? Is it safe? Is it something that people will all have access to? And they had good answers to that. So, yeah, character, again, like, we love that at elementary school, we get to focus on the student and the content synonymously. So character is huge for us, and we love being able to offer our dolphin dollars and our PTIS incentives to make sure that we're strong and awesome about the great work that we're doing. Awesome. And then to close, the Kelvin survey also offered 500 comments. Many of them were compliments. There was very little negative, so we'll see what happens in the spring. But yeah, I can't get used to all of it, but it was very overwhelmingly positive, and we just wanted to offer some of those cool quotes from our parent community about the great things that are happening in the gardens. I am very happy to be leading from the back and lifting up so much awesomeness that's happening to our staff and community. And these were just really great affirmations. Good work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, thank you. That was a thorough look at Santa Cruz Gardens. Wow.
The clock behind you is stopped.
I stood still.
Yeah.
Questions and comments from the board?
I just want to thank you for all the amazing things you're doing at Santa Cruz Gardens. I mean, it's such a amazing place. There's so many opportunities for leadership for the students to build their leadership skills, the environmental stewardship. It's just really remarkable to hear all about it. The SUESD training, that's training for the teachers that they then bring to their classrooms?
Yes.
And what grades?
It can be all grades.
Okay.
Just the idea of lifting academic talk from TK to 5th grade.
Okay.
We
And
have our youngest teacher attending is at 1st grade. But because of Tina Bonner and Karen seeing all grades and being a part of those staff meetings, capacities continuing to be built, whether they're attending or not, a lot of great partnerships. With great.
I'm just impressed every time you come here, I learn something new. Which means to me, you're growing, not only as a principal, but your school, you're working with the district to keep moving the bar. There's always something new that you're coming up with for your kids. I mean, how lucky to grow up with that space and have the great leadership team you guys have over there. It's really neat. Congratulations.
I think also, woven into the presentation, it's really clear that you provide your staff so many opportunities for leadership and, opportunities to create and empower students and empower and grow themselves. I think it's really important for us to acknowledge. I mean, remember, Scott, you always used to say back in, but none of us is as smart as all of us, right? And it's so very, very true. And what you just said, kind of leading from the back. I mean, right, you've got this incredible team that you're empowering and growing, and that's a beautiful thing for us to see. So thank you. And I love how in general, we when we get our principal presentations, we learn so much about each site, but we also get to see the threads, that are common throughout all of our sites. And I love thinking about that and how our kids going into New Brighton, all do have that social emotional learning and the ruler, and they're getting their their same academic work, but each school also has its special program, its special flavor. That's awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Thanks to the work that you all do to empower that, as well as Scott.
Thank you.
I was really impressed with the SAGE projects. I mean, they're just so innovative. The school motto you had at the beginning, is that what it's?
Here we grow, our tagline.
The mission statement. I think you hit everything on that mission statement, just sharing all the amazing things you guys are doing. I mean, wow, very impressive. All right. Thank you so much.
Good job.
Great
Happy
night.
New Year.
Happy
Been very thankful for the attendance that continues to bump up at the Garden School. It's
So
very
Yeah.
appreciative to see that.
Yeah.
I'm back to pre-COVID numbers, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. All the best 2025 to all of you. Everyone.
Thank you.
Well, all right,
Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carla.
Is that your water bottle, Carla?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll grab that.
Okay.
Got
All right.
it.
So exciting to hear about our schools. Moving on to discussion of this California school dashboard.
Well, as always, or actually once a year, I am so grateful to provide the board with a presentation on not just our school dashboard results, but some some guiding measures for the board and the public at large for how to look at a digital tool or a digital platform that's created for our public to understand how our schools are doing. And with that in mind, this year I did add a number of slides that could help anyone who is watching or not watching and looks at the slideshow later, how to navigate the dashboard to find the information that they may be seeking, because it's not always user intuitive. And so there's some slides that I may just kind of breeze through because they're more of a guidebook for a person who might not be here tonight. But I'll let you know as we go. So we do have 40 slides. I'm not going to spend as much time on every one of them. So just to give everyone fair warning, but it's not going to be the only presentation tonight. So here we are. We're just kind of looking at the dashboard results that were published in November this year. They are dashboard results from information from the previous school year. So that's the 23-24 school year. So we know that it comes a little bit late, but that's just the context that I'm going to provide for the board and anybody who's watching tonight. So just something that you or the community might want to know is that the local control funding formula has a number of components that are considered in that funding formula. As you'll see in that kind of peach colored orangish slice, that's the California school dashboard. So for us to receive funding, this is one of the components that the state considers, and that's why it's important for us to be really clear with the community and the board about how we're doing. So there are some new things that you'll find in the dashboard this year. The 2024 dashboard will include information about long-term English learners, and they are LTELs. And this is the 14th student group that was added. There are many student groups that we've talked about in the past. We've talked about English learners in the past. We've talked about students with IEPs, but long-term English learners are just something new. And there are students who have not gained proficiency within 7 years. So that's, I've been an EL for a long time, and now I'm an LTEC. Okay, that's what that indicator or group includes. And then there's new science indicators, because as the board knows, in past years, we assess students in English language arts and math, but not science.
And are the LTELs pulled out of the EL category?
They're in the EL category.
And they're their own category?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, that's a great question. So as the board who's been in existence for a while will remember that during COVID and post-COVID, there weren't color indicators any longer because there wasn't enough comparative data. Well, the colors are back.
Mm-hmm.
And so as you look at the dashboard, you'll see different kinds of indicators. So we're going to look at some tonight that are going to look like the one on the left, and those are called the 5x5s, and I'll tell you what those mean. There's the dashboard, which is the one that looks like the little gas meter, you know, in old cars. And then there's the one underneath, and those are the ones with the purple indicators, and that's when there isn't comparative data yet, but there is some data. Those are the kinds of graphs you'll see. The next slide just really shows us how we drill down in the dashboard. So when we get to, you know, let's say we're looking at how is our district doing in English language arts overall, that would be that little model on the left-hand side. If we wanted to know how students by group are doing in English language arts in the district, that's that kind of model in the center. And then if we wanted to know more about those student groups, the model on the right-hand side would drill down a little bit more. So those are kinds of ways that the dashboard is created for us to not just look at some like bird's eye view, but drill down a little bit farther and a little bit farther and a little bit farther so we can get more information. This slide is just a useful slide if you're wondering, like, how does all of this work together? The local control funding formula is based on performance indicators. So if you see that little green arrow, you'll see there are indicators that are the state indicators, and there are indicators that are the local indicators. The state indicators are all those little circles, and those would be things like academics, graduation rates, suspension rate, English learner progress. Those are the things we're going to talk about tonight. The ones in the little star boxes to the very right-hand side, those are the things that I present to the board in the summertime. Those we actually measure locally. We say, how are we doing in these areas? And so those are two different. But when you look at the dashboard site now, you'll see all of them. So even though you see the ones, the little star ones much earlier on, that's because we're in control of that data. We wait for the state to participate in sharing the other types of data. So they're not all on there until the state publishes theirs, if that makes sense. It might not, and you can always ask me. So this is an overview of the California model. And basically what this is attempting to show is how change of levels compare to the most recent year over the prior year. Okay, so let's just kind of take that in. We know how we did this year, and we want to know how we did last year. That's the first basic thing we want to know. We want to know, did we improve or did we not improve? If we improved, we move into the blue or move towards the blue or green. If we didn't improve, we move towards the yellow or orange. If we started off high and we drop a little bit, we can actually go down in the performance colors. If we started off low and we get better, then we move upwards. So this is the state's way of trying to help us understand that if you start high and end low, it's not a good thing. You start low and end high, it is, right? If you start high and you end high, that's really great. That's the only way you get to the blue. So this is a model that the state prepares to kind of represent that methodology. There's a little note on the side that says, like, if you're looking at suspension and chronic absenteeism, those shouldn't go up. So a progress indicator would actually be a number that moves down, right? You know, that's probably a lot to think about. And I'm not sure that the general population is always going to really understand, you know, kind of what that means, but just useful to try to explain it. There are exceptions to the 5x5 rules, and that really has to do with like identifying students. So if there is a low number of students, you're not going to see that group of students in a color because you might be able to identify them by name. I mean, really, you're going to just reduce the number of indicators so we can't identify students. That's the basic rule there. Student group placement rules. This is something I'm not going to spend a lot of time on because this is something that really is not, it's not palatable to the community, but it really is important to kind of know that it exists back there. And basically, there are indicators by ethnicity, by socioeconomic disadvantage, EL, LTEL, students with disability, homeless, and foster youth, because those are the students whose groups will typically appear as marginalized groups. And it will kind of indicate where a group is over time based on that continuum. So these are just group placement rules to know that exist behind the algorithms in the dashboard. And then this is the things to know number 2. And that has to do with these same groups, but the rules that apply when they're making placement for these groups of students on the dashboard. So again, not gonna spend a lot of time on it, just to know that like, they don't willy-nilly move us from green to blue. There actually has to be a reason, whether it's progress or a decline, and how many years of progress or decline and things like that. What will the science look like this year? The science will be a teal color. So remember how we were looking at all of those other dashboards and they were in red, orange, yellow, green, blue. Science can't have that because there's not been a previous year of the science assessment. So you'll see it in the teal color. No change available till next year. So how do you determine what scores are included? So when a family gets a piece of paper that says this is how your student did on their standardized achievement scores, it'll give them a couple bits of information, but one of them will be their scaled score. And that scaled score will give that student a color, basically a performance level. But a lot of times we have a question like, well, are they close to the green? Are they close to being proficient? Did they just make it out of proficiency? Like, how close are they? So what this model indicates is, where are those scaled score cut scores at the beginning of each level and the end of each level? So if I want to know for my student, whether I'm a teacher or if I'm a parent, I can know how close my student is to the next level. And some of the work that the data that they're doing in data dives is saying, like, how close was this student to the next thing? Like, what more do we need to do to help move them to the next level? And that this information will help us to do that, and it'll help families to understand it differently. So participation rate, and this is just something really, it's an informational, but it's really good for the board to know, is that we must have 95% participation in assessments for students, whether it's the LPAC or one of the CAS tests. And that is just what the state says is just the basic minimum. And that's for a variety of reasons. But the biggest implication is if we don't have 95% participation, we automatically default to the mean score, which is a lower score, which is not great. Participation rate, FAQ. How do parent opt-outs affect participation rate? And I put this one on purpose. A parent opt-out is basically like nothing. It doesn't matter if this parent opts out or whatever, it still is part of the participation rate. It doesn't change that requirement. So we are always looking to understand why a student may have a parent who opts them out of the assessment. We want to know information about all students as much as possible. The state wants to know, and we want to know as much as possible how students are doing. So next one is just the dashboard homepage. If you went to the dashboard, this is what the homepage looks like. Where the red arrow is the find box, and you'd start to just type in SoCal. SOQ is not super popular in terms of school or district names. So you're going to get a couple of options. You're going to get SoCal Union Elementary School District, SoCal Elementary, or SoCal High School, and you're going to choose the one that you want to look at. And then what you'll want to do is you'll want to look at the year. So you can select the current year, you can select previous years, and that's the little box closer to the right-hand side in red. So district details and demographics. So this is just kind of information about our district as it was posted for the 23-24 school year. It shows the number of students. It shows the number of socioeconomically disadvantaged students, English learners, and foster youth. Socioeconomically disadvantaged students at 35.3 is probably a lower number that we'll see in the future year, because we've been doing a different type of determination if students fall in this category by some of the really great work that the business office has been doing in terms of finding out, I don't know what the new form is called. Yes.
Yeah.
So we may see that number go up next year, but right now it's over a third of our population, and that's something also really important to know because I think people misunderstand our demographics. And so I think with our English learners at 11.5%, that's hovering around a pretty typical norm for us over time. And foster youth has just inched up a little bit. It was about 0.1. I don't think it's really changed. I just think that the way that we're finding out who is a foster youth is different. So the next slide is just our district dashboard landing page. And this is the one that's like the bird's eye view. It's the one that indicates like, how are we doing as a district in these component areas? So chronic absenteeism for our district is a yellow. In this case, it's actually some good information. We've been we've not done as well as we're doing now, and we're doing better even now. So next year we'll hopefully see that color change again. Yes, knock on wood. Suspension rate, we have a very, very strong suspension rate, and what I mean by strong is low. And so this is a really great number. Our English learner progress in green is a really fantastic gain for us, which we're really happy to see. English language arts in yellow is a bit of a drop, and so is mathematics. And so we really have to know more about that and why that's happening. And we do have some to show you about that. If you look at the top right hand of that graphic where you have the two little arrows, if you as a viewer wanted to find out more information about the schools, you can click on one of those purple buttons and you could find out more. Some more reports that are available to the public. So when you click on view more reports, you can look at so many reports. So if you want to know how you can view additional dashboard reports and data, you click on one of those and you'll get this menu of items, and you can select any one of those items you want. You can look at a placement report for suspension. You can look at English learner progress. There's lots of different things that you can look at and drill down. Where to link this? So student group report, this is one that I like to see because we're always talking about equity, and we're wanting to see, are there groups of students that we need to look at differently? And why do we need to look at them differently? So I really, I would encourage the board to spend some time on this one. And just to take a look at, as an example, where you see more oranges and reds. Is there a group of students that you see in more oranges and reds? Or is there a particular area where we're saying, gosh, that's a lot of orange and red in that area? So an example could be chronic absenteeism. We see oranges and reds in the chronic absenteeism area. And what that means is that the students have missed over a certain number of days in the school year. It's 10% or more of the school year. And so what are we doing to curb that or to turn that around? And our Superintendent Turnbull has done a lot of work with our school sites on turning that around, and to be able to look at like who's tracking now for that end of year at 18 days, and how to look at that. This is just really great to look at it in those two ways. What groups or what areas do we need to focus on? These are some important details about student group identification factors, and these are things that the state has now become really explicit about for the viewers. So ethnic groups, there has to be 30 or more. For socioeconomically disadvantaged students, 30 or more. English learners, 30 or more. The long-term English learners is different. It's 15 or more. And by nature, you should have fewer of those in a district than you have English learners. Students with disabilities, 30 or more. Foster youth, 15 or more. And homeless youth, 15 or more, because by ratio, those should be so many fewer in a district.
Jessica,
Yes.
the examples that you just showed us on the are those real data, or are those just literal total examples? Like this slide and the next one.
This slide and the next one are total examples.
Okay.
Yes, thank you. Just for informational purposes, yes. So what does the SUSD dashboard look like? It's just like I wanted you to ask that. So the first slide looks at chronic absenteeism. And when you take a look at this, you're gonna see that meter. What I would just encourage you to look at in this one is that when we're looking at chronic absenteeism, the majority of the students in groups are falling in yellow, but there are some anomalies. And the one anomaly here is the long-term English learner in orange. So if we were going to say, what group are we going to focus on specifically? We would think for ourselves, well, the one that looks like it's not doing well enough yet is the one that's in orange, and that's the LTELs. And do I know who the LTELs are? And if I know who the LTELs are, I know exactly how to target my work. So one of the things when I was working with the math team specifically, and they said, which students do we want to think about first as we're planning on shifts in how we're doing what we're doing? And they said, we want to take that LTEL group and we want the list of their names. And we want to identify them in our classrooms, and we want to be able to talk to them about, being proud that when they're in school, and asking, them how we can help them to be at school and those kinds of things. So it's really kind of just getting to that, like I said, drilling down of looking where you can make the most positive growth in the data that you have. We have a lot of no performance colors, and those are those no performance colors are students that we have too few of to be able to put a performance color on them. And then we've got a large number of groups in that yellow. And so looking at that yellow group is, we want to move that whole yellow group to another place. We want to move them to green. And that, like I said, is all the work that Superintendent Turnbull is doing with our school sites now. The next one is our suspension rates. So our suspension rates, like I said, are good. We have no students in red, none in orange, none in yellow, and they're in green and blue. So if someone wanted to take a look at a district that should be a poster child on really how to keep kids in school and how kids can belong in school, how they can make sometimes good choices and not good choices and be in school, I think this we proved out of it. English language arts is the next group. And this is where we really want to take a look at who is in that red group. The red group is the one that we're worried about the most, because it's indicating to us that not only are the students not doing as well as we're hoping, they're also not making positive progress. So like you could have a group of students who had not mastered standard, but they're making progress. And we're going to be moving them over on the continuum towards the orange and yellow. And these are groups of students that just are not making enough progress in English language arts. We do know that based on even what Mr. Albano said tonight, that we have some very strong language support and reading support for students that are different than we've had before. And we're seeing so much positive growth from Youth Play Integrity in phonics, phonemic awareness, and pre-reading, foundational reading skills, that we're going to see these groups naturally move over. But English learners, long-term English learners, and students with disabilities continue to be those students that we say, gosh, the achievement gap is visible. And it's especially visible when students are being asked to read, and they're expected to read long lengths of text, and they're being asked to read and respond in writing to those long texts and kind of the rigorous requests. That's also why Mr. Albano tonight was talking about not necessarily doing test prep with students, but preparing students for what they're going to see, because we do know that some of what can happen during a high stakes test like this is test anxiety. And test anxiety can be bred from, I'm unfamiliar with this task, or I'm unfamiliar with how to respond to this task if I've not seen it before. So we're really trying to especially help English learners and students with disabilities with understanding what this test looks like before they actually get there and feel anxiety and failure to write in those conditions. So just something to take a look at. The one thing that was a noticing for me in this is that English learners and English learner and Hispanic are in two different groups. And so English learners do not just include Spanish speaking students, they include many students. And so I think sometimes people have that false idea. And that's just something that we can note here. And then the socioeconomically disadvantaged group is in that orange. So those are the two groups that we're really drilling down on and focusing. Mathematics is the next one. English learners and students with disability in the red in mathematics, and Hispanic long-term English learners and socioeconomically disadvantaged in the orange. And what you can see is that the long-term English learners actually did better in math overall than they did in English language arts. So we're asking ourselves questions about that. Like, why is that? Is there something about math that's different in the way that it's presented? And so, but not a lot of difference in those two. English learner progress, and this was something that we noted in one of the beginning slides, and that our English learners are actually in the green. And so the increase was of 6% from the previous year. So there was growth, but also that the number itself was a strong number. So very happy to see that.
And Jessica, just to jump in.
Yeah.
That's what we're seeing across the state is that long-term English learners, they're not making the progress as their EL companions.
That's right. And there's also some just theoretical kind of discussions that are behind that. And that is, and it's not just theoretical. We actually hear families say, well, my child's never going to pass this test. And so they give up. They give up on a lot of things about believing that they're scholarly. And so I think when you see your fellow classmates reclassify and move on and feel that success, and that you're not moving along with that trajectory, that fear of failing again becomes a psychological boundary. And so we do see the reasoning that the state actually added this group to our kind of visible space, because if you are just saying, well, yes, they're not out, we're not paying attention, that's not true. They're ever present every day, struggling, and we need to be attending to them, naming them, and working on it. That's not uncommon. So here we are with additional reports. And this is just a representation of, like I said, what that 5x5 looks like. And I like this one just because you can see where different schools are in our district. So if you look at this, this graph closely, you can see that this particular 5x5 is the English language arts 5x5 for the 24th school year. And you can see where our school district placement is, and that's in yellow. And we looked at that in a previous slide. You can see that New Brighton is in the yellow. Santa Cruz Gardens is in the orange. Soquel Elementary is over in the green because they had significant increases. And so that's really nice to be able to see visually. You can also see closer to the green on the left-hand side of a school that is high and declined a little, and that's Main Street Elementary. So you can kind of see if they were high but they went down, they can still be in green, or if they were low and they increased a lot, they can be in green, and kind of how all of that works together. And then the next one is the 5x5 of mathematics, and you can see Main Street high declined a little for Main Street. Soquel Elementary medium performance declined a little. Santa Cruz Gardens starting low and declined. Soquel Union Elementary maintained, and then New Brighton started low but increased. And so we want to well, what did New Brighton do to get that increase? What did Soquel Elementary do to make that increase in English language. And we do know that it's some of that is the supplementary professional development, supplementary materials and things like that. And we did spend quite a lot of energy on mathematics training for the middle school team last year and into this year as well. So we do know some of the reasons that are behind that, but also just a really good visual representation. The next slide is just the same, but for English learner progress. And so you can see our district by and large is in the green, had an increase of performance. We can see that SoCal Elementary had an increase of performance, and we can see that at New Brighton there was a decline of performance. Chronic absenteeism. So this one is the only one that you'll find us all in the same box. We're all in the yellow box. So it was a high level and it declined significantly, which is a good thing. It's great to decline significantly, just not enough to get us in the green. That's why we're gonna be. The next slide is kind of like the model that Ariel was asking about. And that was like, is this our information or is this somebody else's? This is actually our information. And so you'll be able to take a look at this one either by row or column, however you'd like to look at it. If you look at it by column, mathematics has orange and red, and English language arts has orange and red, and then some chronic absenteeism and English learner progress has a little bit of orange. But it's a way for us to kind of take a look and try to circle our wagons, if you will, around those areas where we think the most work is needed. There's also not a lot of difference in some of these outcomes that we've seen in other school districts across our state. And so there's some curiosities about that. We did have a lot of growth coming out of COVID, and I don't know if the board remembers, we actually had some really good scores coming out of COVID, especially with some of our schools, which was a blessing and a not blessing. Because what was not a blessing about that, it was so much easier to decline. And so when you have a good starting place and you go down a little bit, it doesn't look and feel as good. Just some information about assistance based on dashboard results. A lot of times boards will hear about like ATSI or DA or things like that. And those are things that are state and federal determinations, and they're based on kind of some very specific criteria. So DA is differentiated assistance. There's CSI, and I think the board has heard us talk about CSI before, and that's comprehensive support and improvement. And then there's ATSI and TSI. And so this page just shows you like, how do you meet the criteria to get into these assistance categories? The blue box is the box that you don't ever want to be in. And most districts have found their way into ATSI or TSI based on attendance rates, because attendance coming out of COVID for most districts across the state of California have not been as strong as they were prior to that. And the next slide just says, like, if you were in one of those boxes, like, how do you meet that criteria? And so some of the terms you might not know by looking at this graphic are in those green boxes where it says federal accountability, and underneath it says ESSA. That's the Every Student Succeeds Act. And that's really what is the impetus for all of the accountability measures that we provide, the public and the state for how students are doing. And I'm not going to go into all of the criteria. Hopefully we won't ever have to know these. But even if we were to fall into one of them at some point, there is support that's provided either by the County Office of Education, the state of California, or other cross-agency support. So what that might look like in a district is extra funding in some cases, or some extra accountability measures, or training or coaching or things like that. So you don't ever want to fall into one of those categories, but if you do, there's help available. Okay. So the good news is the dashboard is coming out earlier next year and then earlier the next year. It's really hard to have this conversation in January. And we talk about that often in my role, because we have to write accountability plans, and it's really hard to work off of old data. So this is good news for us. So what's coming next? So just for the board to know, what's coming next for you is that this year we'll have a LCAP mid-year update, and that'll be coming in our next meeting, our next board meeting. And what that will help you to do is to determine not just where we are with this data, this dashboard information, but our local data that we're collecting, how we're serving students, how we're making plans for the next annual LCAP, how we're collecting information from our public through, Scott's site visits that he's doing with the community gatherings. So the state of California asks all districts to provide a mid-year support for two reasons. One is to say, like, how are you doing? And do you know how you're doing? And also to really take another half of a year for changes to those plans that you might need to make if you don't see the progress that you'd like to see. Okay, so that was a really quick run through, and I know that there's probably lots of questions, and you can ask them, of me today, you can ask them of us anytime. And in preparation for the LCAP mid-year update coming, think about questions, and obviously, the annual update to the LCAP is coming in a few months. So anytime is a good time to ask questions. No questions are bad questions.
Great, thank you so much. Questions or comments?
It was very, very thorough. Thank you. I got to wondering if I were a parent now curious about this, where would I find it on the district website? And I found it pretty easily on the educational services page. So that was welcoming and nice that it's accessible there. As I do think that there are some people who really want to take a look at this and get a better understanding. So good to know we've got it accessible.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. It isn't always reader friendly.
I still can barely wrap my head around 5x5s, to be honest. I think it's intuitive to some types of learners and not to others. So at least I appreciate, like, all right, you can click and, you don't have to view the data in that particular format if it doesn't work for you. Yeah. It's a fire hose. Yeah. But we need it.
Yeah. And this is based off the CASP data?
It's based off of CASP data. It's
Like
based
the
off
math and the English.
The math and the English are based on CASP data, and in the ranges of those scale scores, those cut scores that the state has created. It also is based on, and obviously CalPED's data. So CalPED's data is how we report suspensions, how we report attendance, how we report those kind of things.
How long is the testing window?
The testing window is approximately, for us, it's approximately 5 weeks long. And that is, for some districts, it's shorter, and in some districts it's longer, just depending on your philosophy about user fatigue. And so for us, we typically will do the assessments in blocks, like science first. Then we'll typically do math and then English language arts. And the reason that we do English language arts last is because there's a 30-day window from start to finish, including weekends and breaks, from the way students start some of the English language performance tasks and have to complete them. Because if they don't complete them, then they get the lowest one. And so that's problematic. And then also I'll give you an example of New Brighton in particular. They want the student with the teacher that teaches that class to give them the assessment. So where in some schools they could say, well, we're just going to do testing all day and you're going to do it in your homeroom. And they've tried that in the past. Students don't do as well. And so, and that's what they tried last year, is to really kind of stack the tests and kind of everybody was an administrator of the test. So those are just nuances to testing. So we keep about a 5-week window open. And then we do, included in that, we do our makeups, because makeups typically take a long time. And the better students want to perform, sometimes the longer they take, it just depends. So, yeah, it's typically right after spring break and that time frame.
I'm just noticing that there's a complication, for example, like a slow test taking student, they're being pulled out for those until they're done, because 95% is a lot of students. So we're really trying to achieve that 95%. I mean, this must be a conversation that you all have, that a student is,
Oh, absolutely.
that class is still happening as they're taking the test, but some people are done, but not everybody's done, and we're trying to finish.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, we've got fast test takers, and we've got slow test takers, and that's not something that we can mitigate easily. I would say that the quick test takers, there's actually a little flag in the system that will say like they're going a little too fast. And so that could be a good or a bad thing. But we do have students that go up to the very end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're missing class, right, to finish? I mean, this must,
Most of the students are not missing class if they're not finishing. There's a pretty good window of time that we give them to cut out for the assessment.
yeah.
But there are always going to be a few. And if a student misses a day of testing, they're gonna miss a day of class that the other students aren't gonna miss. So and those are the ones that we find we're spending most of the time with the students who have missed days of testing.
Yeah. And 5 weeks is pretty standard across districts to
In my
finish all.
experience about in this general area, it's pretty consistent. There's not very many that would do less. The high school student maybe take a little bit less. But they just have a different schedule for those days that we just don't create.
Yeah. And sorry, but we administer the CASP in the beginning of the year and the end of the year.
CASP is only at the end of the year. It's a
Oh, it's
summative
only at
review.
the end.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the always been thinking is like how close to the end of the year can we get it so that the kids can teach them longer? But also how much more tired are they by the time the end of the year comes? So it's always that thing, that balance.
Yeah.
So yeah, the iReady is the beginning and end of the year. And that's also an element to this to consider is like, do we do the iReady test first and then the CASP so that we know how they're gonna do? Or are they gonna be so tired of taking tests after they take iReady that they're not gonna do well on that test? Like which chicken or the egg, right? And so does that impact this? And we do sometimes see impacts of that. Last year, they were really close together and we did see test fatigue as an outcome. And we've spread them out a little bit this year to hopefully deter that.
Yeah.
So across those 5 weeks, how many days is an average student?
It depends on
Taking
the
testing.
grade. So the state says there's like a suggested number of minutes that each of the assessments should take a typical student, to complete. I would say, 2-ish hours for like the math portion is not doable. You can't do 2 hours of just sitting and doing a math test. So you have to break into a certain number of days and not necessarily back-to-back days. So you really have to kind of think about like sub-tests within a test because there are sub-tests within those tests. And so how to break those down by day. So while the state might say, oh, it takes 120 minutes, when you're finally done with it, it's 200 minutes with all the times you've had to stop and start and stop and start. Does that make sense? Kind of an interesting thing to try to schedule well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just a couple of things. You just mentioned that if the reporting, according to them in 2026 is going to be in October, then does that mean we're going to need to move way up the CASP tests? Because you just said we try to do it as late as we can, which I'm guessing is like November, December.
Oh,
But if they're gonna report it in October, wouldn't we have to then move the test to September?
that's a great clarifying question. So the test is always administered at, during the school year, the year before they actually publish the results. So it has to be, done by before the last day of school the year before. So, we couldn't push it after the last day of May that school is in attendance. So it doesn't change our timeline on that. It just changes how fast they have to get their job done.
Cause we're just getting 2024 data
Right.
right now in January, so, okay. Okay. I was also just, Scott, thanks for putting up all the CVGs on the calendar too, so everybody can see it, and I've heard it in a lot of other places, so neat. And then in regards to this, I know, I don't know, how to, you know. So some of the results are obviously not where we want to be at. First of all, I want to say congratulations to Santa Cruz Garden for, I don't know if they recognize that early, but implementing that new reading program that they are. Sounds like a really smart move, you know.
They're all doing it.
Yeah, that's
Oh, that's great, you know, to address that, if there's something new that can help those students read better, I firmly agree that's the place to do it, you know, catch them while they're early. I was also curious, you know, I noticed that the wider two or more races in ELA and math were both green. Is there any way to, without siphoning any sort of resources from anybody else, to try to move those up to blue? And, you know, like I don't know how you know, I know a parent had mentioned to me about an honors math class last year, graduation or something like that. I don't know if there's a way to not just, you know, worry about moving our lower performers up higher, but our high performers up even higher too. And that would certainly be a way to move those needles.
Yeah, I mean, I think the question is a good one, and it's been called different things over time. When I was first an assistant principal, we took everybody that was close to the next color. And we made lists of the kids that were close to the next color, like how many points are
For
they
sure,
close to
yeah.
the next color? You know, and there was like this really a very strong movement towards that kind of test play.
Bubble kids.
Yeah, bubble
They were right
kids.
on the board.
Yeah, and that's what, I mean, that
Are
was.
we allowed to say that?
That was a term that was really well,
Yeah,
I mean,
no.
very prolifically used at the time. I think the way that we do our data talks now is we're talking about every single student, and we're talking about every single data point that we know about the student, including where they are in those markers. And so it's always about pushing them to the next level, no matter if they're in the red now or they're in the green now. So, you know, we don't just talk about students that are in red, but we're talking about our data dives. We're talking about every single student that attends our schools. So I think there's a constant effort to like move kids to the next place.
I'll just piggyback on something Carlos said, because he was referenced a couple of times, that curb cut effect, right? If we're doing all these strategies for students who are struggling, that is gonna pay off for everybody. So they're just good strategies.
But that's a great question. And if you've been in the business as long as we have, we remember all those
I'm
moments.
sure you
those
guys
first
have
days.
addressed somebody, you know, yeah, probably 100 million times, right?
Yeah.
With something like now that brought up a question for me, thank you, like, so with something like U-Fly,
Yeah.
you know, really had, I mean, my simplified take on it, right, but the focus on the phonics and the phonemics and different ways of doing that and highlighting those skills. Do you tend to see the improvement? Is there a group that you tend to like notice the improvement in first, or is it kind of across the board? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think we're seeing a big change across the board with kids' proficiency in phonics, name it, awareness and foundational reading. I think that's something super visible. I think what we're seeing though is because we've trained our ELD teachers and our intervention teachers in youth fly integrity also, it's a common curriculum and strategy style that maybe they didn't have like shared vocabulary about or shared like technical strategy about, and now they do. And so when kids go to their ELD teacher or their intervention teacher, they're getting the same strategies and kind of practitioner design as their classroom teacher. And so I think there's a lot of consistency with that. And I think there's a more opportunity for co-teaching, and we're seeing a lot more co-teaching. so that students aren't getting pulled out of class as much, that you're seeing maybe two adults in a classroom with different kind of structures in that. There's a different sense of belonging when that happens. I think that it's breeding results for lots of kids for lots of different reasons. But I think it is impacting English learners in the way that co-teaching model has really flourished at a few of our schools, and we see really strong evidence, even not in just those foundational grades, like, you know, TK, K, and 1, where we were originally focusing, but we see a lot of the carryover into 4 and 5, which were kids maybe who didn't have those foundational skills and weren't able to catch up sooner. And now we're seeing it and we're actually able to push it and teach it differently. So that's helpful. Thank you.
I'm wondering, I'm very interested in math, as I've said before. On this, the 5x5 by school on math, is there a stratification of this that also looks at the groups? So like, is Main Street Elementary in the green because it has a portion of white students and a lower portion of English learners?
You can drill down by school.
Okay.
You can. And just, I didn't drill down in every single area by school, but you can drill down in every single area in every single school. So if you go into dashboard and then if you go into SoCal Union Elementary, you can click on it and you can go by school, not just by test type. And then you can drill down into group if there's a large enough group of students. What you'll find for Main Street, you know, I'm sure it's predictably, English learners don't have a color category.
Because one of the things I'm thinking is, are there things that we can learn? You know, like if you're just to take this at face value, be like, oh, what can the other schools learn from Main Street? But that might not be as applicable if it's English language students that, you know, maybe are more in the orange. So I'm just interested in what can we learn from one school to the others in the areas where we want to put some more attention.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, and we've had similar questions come up like this before. And it's hard to take something that's happening at one school and make a direct transfer over to another school. What you can do is you can take a look at schools with similar like demographic groups and say what's working for them. So if like let's say SoCal had a group that moved upward and you had a similar demographic group that didn't in another school, you could say, what are you doing with that group at that, you know, at your school? That's a different question. It's a better question. And then you can say, oh, I can try those strategies or those practices, or maybe those, you know, curriculum supplements or whatever that is. And sometimes it's just as simple as having those teachers talk together.
Yeah.
And so that's why we've tried to build in our professional development plan this year, district-wide grade level collaboration time, so that if I'm talking about how I'm teaching math instruction, I'm talking about how I'm teaching all my kids math instruction. And as I'm doing something for English learners, I can also share that with my colleagues at the same grade level, so that that's a different conversation and it's more apples to apples conversation.
Have we done some of that analysis of like, are there certain groups at certain schools that have had increases that we want to specifically kind of facilitate that conversation?
Yes. And I think what's the best thing to do is actually have them know where they're seeing the changes and want to share those, rather than for me to say, oh, that school is doing a great job with that thing. Listen to what they're doing. That's not super effective as a learner, as an adult learner for me. So it's just really having that collaboration time that creates the kind of that synergy of discussion about like, well, with my English learners who are successful in this, these are the things that I'm trying.
Yeah.
Also, I do believe in that when you go into the data, to answer the first question, you can see, I think there's a number like really specific, like there's 42, you know, ELA members, 42, this 40, 100 white, 100, whatever it is by race, socioeconomic. I mean, it's really specific to like the exact number of students are in each group and how they do, which I think is really neat, because it lets you guys really be able to target, you know, and know where we need to spend, you know.
Yeah.
who
Yeah,
needs,
and
needs
it-
really
And
help,
it's a different perspective on it too.
for
right?
sure,
Yeah,
100%,
yeah.
you know?
I know it's a lot to try to take in one night. So I thank you for indulging all the slides. But again, I'm always open to, conversations and questions about. Any.
Right, thank you so much for that very thorough look at the dashboard. We're good?
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to discussion regarding board policy 6,000 concepts and roles.
This one is also mine, and this is just a first reading. It's actually a very short board policy. It's just some new guidance. It's not even a very explicit new guidance. It's just some change of some terminology. And there's some additions. So, just some general changes instead of research-based curriculum in a supportive, positive, and engaging manner. So I think there's an attempt to really help the board add languages that's like social emotional, and those supports are really important to add in the language. And then in the second paragraph, some of that same, kind of social emotional language is included in that second paragraph. They took out some superfluous language like in as much as, those kinds of things. The bigger change is just kind of that bolded paragraph that comes right before the bullet points. And it's just really talks about what the district's goal is, because there wasn't that verbiage in there. Really, this is a community effort. So everything that leads in the 600s groups, which is everything teaching and learning, really has a goal in mind. And it's, the district's goal of students to be, successful should be included in this 600 policy. The other parts of the policy don't change, not even some of the disclaiming section. So it's just a very moderate change, but I think a good one.
I think it ties in really beautifully with Carlos' presentation.
Yeah.
Obviously reading this and just connecting immediately to everything we heard about going on in the gardens.
Yeah.
Yes, of course, we want a rigorous, academic curriculum, research-based. But that's not it. That's not it, because it really needs to be engaging, and it's great to have partnerships and reach all of the folks who are involved. So it's good to me.
That looks great.
Well, I will bring it back next time.
All right, thank you. An update on the district professional learning plan for 24-25.
Hey, let's see. Oops, I think I might, yes. All right, so as the board knows, we have lots of opportunities for teaching and learning of kids, and we have lots of opportunities for teaching and learning of adults in our district. And some of those you'll see in the LCAP in the actions and service or metrics and actions section of the LCAP. But most of what we do in the LCAP has to be produced by something that we know about kids. And what we know about kids is sometimes we need to know more about how to help them. And so a professional learning plan has to naturally align directly with the LCAP. And so what we do every year in construction of the LCAP is we take a look at all those actions and services and metrics, and we do a survey of our staff at that same time and say, if these are our goals in a district, what more do you need to help you to do that? And so then we kind of cross-reference those two documents, and we come up with some of the things that we're going to do over the course of the year in terms of increasing our efficacy and developing ourselves as teachers and staff members. So what I did was I just created a one-page professional development update for 24-25, and it breaks it down into a couple of component areas. One is we have the 3 full days of professional development. We have early release district-wide professional development opportunities. We have site-based professional development. So like Carlo tonight was talking about some of the things that they're doing with SAGE specifically. And then we have observations and learning lab walkthroughs. Where we walk into model classrooms and we look at instruction and we talk about that instruction, we reflect on that instruction with the teacher and other groups, and we learn that way. And then we also have conference-based professional development. So there's just a little table for each of those to say like, what have we done so far? And what are we planning to do? So that first table really kind of just talks about some of the things that we've done on those 3 professional development days. I'll highlight the one that we just most recently had on January 6th. We had some outstanding professional development that day. I think one of the favorites was the artificial intelligence tools for educators. I've heard it mentioned over and over again, how teachers are using it to differentiate instruction, differentiate reading, plan for lessons, you know, using tools to kind of even respond to parents. You know, how do I say this, you know, this hard thing in a kind way, in a supportive way, you know, because that's not maybe my thing. So I'm used to talking to kids all day. And there's just lots of different ways in which the trainers taught our practitioners how to use the tools wisely and smartly. And then yoga was a big hit too. We did yoga in the morning. Scott and I were there with everybody. We were not doing as great a job as everybody else, I would say, but we were working on it mindfully. We were really giving it effort, but it was a really calming way to start the day. And I think a lot of people went by the time that the yoga session was over, like, are we done already? It's like, I'm kind of grounded. I'm ready to go. So just a lot of great feedback from our staff about what they want. And we're really trying to give it in ways that are meaningful to what they do every day. And some really practical things, writing IEP goals, disability language, the power of being seen was a really big one that was done at New Brighton, and not how do we see every one of our students in some of the ways that we talked about tonight. We're planning for the April 14th day. School inclusion practices is going to be a big one for us on that day. We really, really want to make sure that every student is included. And then it's not just included because we think that they are, because we know that they are.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
Is this, are some of these for certain groups of people in the district, or are some of these for everybody?
Some are for everyone, some are for certain groups. So
like what's for everybody?
So like, so yoga is for everyone. But like the PTKLFs, those are for TK and K teachers, because those are the preschool learning foundations. So there are some that are very strategically placed for groups of teachers. iReady Math basically is like for more of the teachers, right? Because all of the teachers have access to students who need to be on iReady and assessed in iReady. So it just depends on the one that you're looking at. Executive functioning, autism, disability language, writing, IEP, and dysgraphia were made for different members of the student services teams. If they're writing IEPs, that might have been one that they were receiving. So yeah, it's like some of them are very tailored to a group that said, this is something I really need help with. And some are more broad-based.
That's kind of interesting to me that we don't have something that we're teaching to everybody.
We do that sometimes. Like when last year we had half days that we were spending with our whole group with culturally responsive teaching in the brain. And that was also like something that was highly desired and highly being successful. And then, you know, kind of at the beginning of the year, everybody had to do CPR. Everybody had to do, you know, AED training. So there are times when we do everybody. And then there are days when we say we need to focus on some of the things that we're seeing crop up in the data based on groups of students that we have. And so New Brighton specifically said, like, we need to have more time to talk about each one of our students, and we really need to focus on these particular things. Can we have this time to do that? Yeah, let's try to figure that out. So we're always trying to be like responsive based on the information that we're getting at the time that we're getting it, because we're asking.
I am curious about this. I think this might be a good thing for us to keep thinking about and keep talking about. But if we're looking at these numbers across the board and then different schools are doing different things and we're interested in these, like, for example, the new math framework. I mean, that's kind of something that everyone's gonna do. The U-Fly, we have it in all the schools,
Yeah,
you know, to have like a,
well, so those, I mean, so all.
or do we have it in all the schools? Sorry, this
We'll
is,
find in all the schools, we have the
Yeah.
Henry in all the schools. We are, the momentum training that you might have seen in here that's for writing, that was for all the schools and all the grades, so. We don't have like, maybe the structure would have been more helpful, so like, we don't have executive functioning all day for just a group of teachers. So like, when we did the momentum training, we did this grade span is doing the writing now, and then they're gonna go to the math framework, and then, you know, so we can teach writing to everybody in one day, but they have just their grade span with them. We're doing the math framework for everybody in one day, but just a slice of students in a specific grade band at a time. So is that more helpful? Because like those things, like everybody's getting the writing training, everybody's getting the math training. They're not all doing it together because they have different sessions during the day. So they have multiple sessions that they're going to in the day.
no, but that was my question, is like, what of these is every or most teachers in the district getting? Like, to have shared language, to
Yeah.
have shared practices,
Yeah.
to
so
learn together.
AI was one of the ones that was for everybody. Math was one for everybody. And the new math framework was the one for everybody. So, because those are big ones.
Yeah.
That I didn't understand your question at first, so I
Oh,
apologize.
yeah. No, it's, thank you.
I'm happy to see that the sexual harassment is on there. I think that's very topical right now, just to make sure.
Yeah, I mean, you'll get to see kind of just be on the early release district wide days, you know, there's a lot of like mandated trainings that we have on those days, and that naturally would fall in those days. That's one of them. And then kind of build into winter and spring what some of those early release days would include, and the observation and walkthroughs, kind of what those look like. And then the last one, the conference-based professional development. And there's a whole host of conference-based professional development that we have planned for. And this is just an update of where we are right now. This continues to grow throughout the year as much as we, you know, work with our data and we talk to our staff about what their needs are.
And you said that, who's running these? Is it in district or is it hiring somebody?
It depends. So, like our momentum writing trainer is an outside trainer. He's well-known, he's top-notch. Our AI tools for educators, our ed tech department at the County Office of Education. We partnered with 2 of their trainers that came in and did the work. The math framework, I've been working with the math framework. And so I did all the new math framework training with the teachers, and we talked a lot about the social justice component of the new math framework. So it just depends. It depends on which expertise we have access to. The good news is that our staff is pretty open to anyone as long as they are a trusted, you know, like person. And so we don't believe in spending a lot of money on trainers, and so where we don't have to, we do not, unless we can't seek better quality.
Just like to comment on the structure of the day. It was great on all the important content. The structure is very snappy, and that's not easy to do. Everybody's coming back from a break. People are cycling through, and I could really tell from the day people felt in the right place. They were, you know, cycling through with their grade alike peers or grade span peers, and things move fast, even like lunch and who's going, you know, when you're going to the next session. So the organization of format was equally as good as the content. Yeah.
Like I said, just a quick snapshot. It is not all inclusive, but it's at least a way that the board can kind of see what we have access to.
Great. Any questions or comments?
I have one question on the AI piece. I know I saw the deck in there, and it's definitely focused on how the educators can be using AI. What is our districts and our counties' guidance on what and how students
should be using AI?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. So I think some of what the AI trainers did in the, like, the upper grades sections is really to talk about like how to build in expectations for students, how to help them ethically navigate AI to use for instructional purposes. So for like the lower grades, it was more how to use AI tools to support how I plan as a teacher, but in the upper grades, it was more how to use it in the classroom to facilitate learning of students. So there was a lot of guidance that was provided during, that instruction. We're partnering with those same trainers. Scott and I have talked a little bit about this. And Scotts Valley did a community AI integration plan. And so they had students, they had staff, they had families all participate. And it went from like, what are the ethical responsibilities? What are the tools that we're going to use to, suggest as ethical platforms of AI, like, because they've vetted them. And so we know that there are ones that they've shared with us that have been vetted, but how then to help families to navigate their support of AI or just our knowledge of AI as like community partners. And so what they did in Scotts Valley is they worked together, I think, for maybe 3 or 4 sessions with a multi-educational partner group. And they basically said, like, what is it? How are we going to use it? How are we going to support it? What tools are, what ethical tools? What are the roles and responsibilities of students, staff, and families? And then they published that, and they did some information, kind of gatherings about that, so that there was some common understanding and common expectations, and that's the direction that we're talking about going. Because families don't always understand, what we're using in our classrooms. And if they say like, oh, AI is okay at school, but they don't know the ethical platforms, they may not know how to support it well at home. So I think it's a really great question, and I think it's something that every single district across our entire country is trying to grapple with right now.
Yeah, I'm specifically interested in like this slide 16 in the copy of the AI for leaders. It's like classroom AI use, what's cheating, what's okay, and it's this broad spectrum. And I would love more dialogue on what we think is legitimate uses for our students to use. Like where on the spectrum do we fall as a district?
Yeah, I mean, I think that can come up from those planning teams.
Yeah.
I think that's something that Scotts Valley did first in our county. And I think that they did a good job of it. I've seen their model plan. And I think it's a good model for us to view. If you'd like to see, if the board would like to see a copy of it, I put in the Friday update. You can just take a look at it.
Yeah.
But it's done by the COE staff, so it's
They
kind of,
they facilitate it. The training is done by them. Their guide, the guidance that the COE has is basically comes from state guidance also, and other entities like Common Sense Media and things like that we already use in a lot of the work that we do. But in a district plan, they facilitate the work and they provide some support for the work, but they don't create the plan. The district creates the plan with their help.
yeah, so we haven't created a plan. Santa Cruz City Schools has a plan, but you're saying the COE has like kind of AI guidance?
The only plan that I have seen, the full plan that I've seen that's been a multi-educational partner plan is the one from Scotts Valley.
Oh, but City Schools has,
I'm not sure.
oh,
I'm not
okay.
sure if it's the same inclusive plan. I just haven't seen that same model from them yet.
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of I mean, that was at the CSBA conference. We heard about AI, so it's definitely something in our future to look at and talk about.
Yeah.
Was that, are we good? More? Okay, questions or comments?
No, super comprehensive. I guess I do have maybe a request. I see in the bottom of the conferences that Santa Cruz Gardens is teaching a session at the Cal Hope Conference. If that's recorded in any way, we'd love to see that in the Friday updates. And
Yeah.
or I mean, or if there are any other conferences where anyone
Yeah.
on our team presents, if they're, if there's anything you
Absolutely.
think we find helpful, we'd love to see it in the updates.
Great, thank you for that.
Sure.
Moving on to the LCAP bite. You had a roll.
So this one is actually just, it's a very, it's a really wonderful one to be able to share with this team. Because it really goes, it's included in the last sharing that I just gave in the professional learning. And we do in our district, we do lots of different kinds of walkthroughs. They're action-based learning cycles, and that is we go into classrooms to learn something about what students are doing and what their experience is like. And so one of the ways that we have done that over the course of past 4 years is we've gone in and we've looked at the student experience, the English learner student experience, the experience of the student of color, the students that have been not as successful as we hope that they will be, and we call them our target students, and that's not the best term, but they're the students that we're really studying. Like, what does school feel like for you? And we want to know what that looks like. And so we've kind of built that out in our work in increasing our math mastery. So as the board knows, we've been working with the County Office of Education and a partnership that they have created with PEBC. And through PEBC, we have received a math coach, and that math coach has asked us, like, how do you want to think about improving math mastery for students? And what we determined was we wanted it to be a learning lab style, which was going into classrooms where really positive math instruction was happening with our math leadership teams, and say what's happening in this classroom by observing the teacher, the students, the work, the materials, all of those kinds of things, and measuring that against the new framework and saying, like, what about this is working, and let's harness the positive energy from that and build some reflective discussions around that. And so my LCAP bite tonight is just to highlight this action-based learning cycle progression into our district, to focus on math, because we know math is an area of much needed support. In so much as this is important to us, we, Scott and I have attended the PEBC Math Institute yesterday and today. So it's an ongoing progression of institutes over the course of 3 years and includes our math coach. But the training that we had over the past 2 days was the social justice components of mathematics and students as mathematicians. And one of the pieces that they talk about that's a really great crossover piece is equity indicators in math instruction and math teaching and learning. And so what was so great about that is when we've been going through and looking at the student experience, because we could see inequitable outcomes. I'm just sharing this as an example because I just picked it up today. How can that observation that we've been doing over the course of years and this new observation that we're doing through these learning lab cycles, how does that cross over? And they actually gave us this document today that says these are all of the indicators that can let you know whether, when we know that students all have the right to be mathematicians and know math to function in the world, these are the things that you would see in a classroom. And so what we're really finding is that those walkthrough structures as learning labs are really growing our understanding and development of teaching and learning, because there are colleagues and there are students that we can say, these are the things we know data about them, we know what their assets are, we know, maybe what some of their obstacles are, and we can observe how they're actually doing when they're interacting as mathematicians during their school day. And so I just love that we have built into our LCAP release time for our teacher leaders to be able to do that, because it takes a lot of time and money to get subs and some release and plan lesson plans for when I'm not in my classroom and plan those lessons, knowing that other adults are gonna come in and look at me and observe me, even though what they really want to know is like what the students are experiencing. So I just think it's a really great thing. I'm so happy that the board, when you looked at our LCAP last year and you could see that that was a component of it, just to know that it's active and that's happening in a really positive way.
Great. Questions or comments? Thank you. All right, thank you.
I've been checking email. So
Okay, great.
I'll holler if there's any. comments.
Okay, wonderful. 5F, board policy on chronic absence and truancy.
I'll be presenting this one on behalf of Carissa, but Carissa did all the legwork on this. And so good that we've seen connections, right? Carlo talked about attendance. We heard chronic absenteeism as part of the dashboard presentation. And so this is obviously something we monitor closely, and we want our board policies to reflect that. And it's always reassuring when policies have to catch up to our practice, as opposed to the other way around, and that's the case here. And so you'll see the changes in that policy really come down to in working with families whose students may be experiencing chronic absenteeism or truancy, to focus on how can we support. What are the identifying factors and patterns that we're seeing with student groups, as we talked about earlier? How can we build better personalized relationships with those students so they feel comfortable at school and want to come to school? What kind of outreach can we do, including bilingual outreach, trauma-informed practices? And so everything about how can we support the families, how can we make school a place where students want to come versus any kind of punitive approach. And so you'll see that reflected in the board policy. I think you've heard time and time again, that's how we approach it anyway. And there's also information in there about attendance recovery, which can come in different formats. But something you've heard a lot about from us about is a real focus on leveraging independent study and the new law that allows us to capture for as little as 1 day. So you've heard a lot about that. So we won't belabor it, but that's another factor in this. So recommended changes on this board policy.
Great. Questions or comments? Nobody? No, that's good.
So bring that back as
I just wanted to
Second
say
read.
that I like that I see some of our MTSS work reflected in it. I think that's great.
that's when it all ties together.
All right, discussion regarding board law, board member electronic communications.
A little bit more on the technical side, so I'll try to identify several different reasons why this board policy has been recommended for updates. About 4 or 5 reasons, 4 or 5 different buckets you could put it in. So the first one is simply to clarify and provide further guidance on how to avoid board electronic communication that could inadvertently violate the Brown Act. So just that in and of itself, kind of high level reason for the change, clarification on language in the board policy. Secondly, to better align with another board bylaw, one very close by, 9010, and that's on public statements. That one, the board just updated, we just updated in December. And so on that one, it's guidance on identifying a board spokesperson, which for us, typically the board president. You'll find that in our governance handbook. And so that was 9010 on public statements. Tonight's bylaw 9012 kind of applies the concepts from 9010 into the electronic communications specifically and clarifies that piece. Third bucket, third reason for changes on this is to reference that Public Records Act requests, PRAs, apply even to board member electronic communications on district business, even if it's on a personal email account or a personal device. Simple solution, use the SUESD email for your district business. Fourth reason is to reflect that new Supreme Court decision, Linkey versus Freed, which we talked about this a little bit earlier. So that if you're blocking critics on a social media platform, for example, as long as you're not doing that in the position of like the board spokesperson on district business, then you're not squashing anybody's freedom of speech, right? And so kind of clarifies, as long as you're not using it in that capacity and kind of in that greater position of authority, you can use social media in separate conversations to, engage with the public or answer questions. And then I guess the other thing is just real super specific, but it even mentions emojis. And so, it's getting in the weeds, but like how would use of my understanding, how would use of emojis violate the Brown Act? Let's say a board member, one of you, in a position of as a board member, makes a statement on social media and two people thumbs up it, right? Like you kind of just created a corner. So it's very much like what rules would you use in a room? You wouldn't get outside of a board meeting, 3 board members in a room and start talking about district business and making decisions. You wouldn't do that on a social media platform either. Kind of a simple way to look at it. And then finally, just to clarify that, you don't have to live in fear on your own personal social media life. Like you can like and unlike things on your own personal social media account. It's just when you're acting in that capacity of a board spokesperson. And we've had good examples before of accounts that say like, I'm a board member, but I'm not, on this side, I'm not speaking on behalf of the board, being really clear about that. So a lot of intentionality in this board bylaw to help guide and keep us safe.
All right. Questions or comments?
Not on this one, but if you'll indulge me,
Mhm.
I love how we've got the TED rule where in general it says the SUESD governing board at the beginning of
Yeah.
the policies.
Yeah.
I don't think I saw it on the very
Oh.
first one we talked about.
Oh, great
on
catch.
If
We've
I
been trying to
know
get better at that.
I don't mean to go backwards, but
No.
I just feel like I gotta
That's an easy
consider
fix.
TED, and if you were here, it's 5C, the discussion on board policy 6000. If no one objects to that, we could just make it consistent. Thank you.
Easy peasy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'll behave on social media. Right?
Watch those emojis.
Yeah, and it does say subject matter, right, of the board.
Yeah,
So it's
what
really.
falls under your jurisdiction.
the
Yeah.
Things.
Yeah.
Businessy things.
Right.
Okay.
I'll still behave.
All right, no questions or comments from the board. Moving on to action items, consider adopting resolution to validate the bond election results.
Yay.
Yay. All of it. So on June 12th, the board approved the resolution to allow the district to go out for our general obligation bond. And on November 5th, the voters approved it by 56.29%. So now that we've successfully passed the bond, now we have to formally validate and confirm with the school board with this resolution to validate our election results.
Great.
Makes it official, huh?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Can I have a woohoo?
Yeah.
Can we thank all of our viewers? I mean, honestly, I think it was like 80+% came out to vote. I think that's tremendous turnout, and supportive. Well, just
Yeah.
voting, John.
Yeah, no.
All right, no questions or comments?
And there is a good article in the local paper about thanking our community for Measure P.
Oh, excellent, good. So this is a resolution. All right, so I need motions and then you do the count. All right, do I have a motion to adopt the bond results?
Yeah, I will make the motion to validate the bond election results.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, there's a roll call vote.
Trustee Edmondson,
Aye.
trustee Gray,
Aye.
trustee Jackson Miller.
Aye.
Trustee Dickinson.
All right.
All right, yay, it is validated.
Yay. Can you imagine not?
They're totally official.
All right, 6B, consider adopting a resolution authorizing the issuance and sale of the general obligation bonds by a negotiated sale pursuant to a bond purchase agreement.
Okay, and now this is so we can get our ball rolling quickly. So this would be, as it says, to issue the sale. We're gonna go up to $20 million. This would be our first series, Series A. And then it'd be a Series B and C after and so forth. So tonight, if we approve this resolution, we can go ahead and start the process to start selling bonds.
All right, questions or comments?
Just who's is Isom our advisor on this or?
Yeah.
Like, so we're getting
And
valuable advice from someone we've worked with before successfully.
Yes.
That was reassuring. Thank you.
Yeah. and as well as DWK.
Right.
has been.
And so they've suggested the 20 million as the first, that's the right amount to do for the first.
Yes.
All right, do we have a motion?
I'm gonna raise the motion to authorize the issuance and sale of general obligation bonds by negotiated sale pursuant to a bond purchase agreement.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, again, a resolution.
Trustee Edmondson.
Aye.
Trustee Gray.
Aye.
Trustee Jackson Miller. Aye. Trustee Dickinson.
All right.
All right, resolution passes. 6C, consider approval of the resolution to establish a Measure P Citizens Oversight Committee.
So continuing on with the bond theme, as was mentioned, our committee supported us with the passage of Measure P. So we're committed to, as a district, to spending these funds as intended and as was communicated to the public on the ballot. An important part of that commitment is establishing the Citizens Oversight Committee, COC for short. You'll hear that a lot. The COC ensures transparency and accountability, builds trust with the community, and ensures compliance with legal requirements of general obligation bonds. We plan to start the process right after tonight, looking at a general timeline of about 2 weeks of communicating the slots for the COC, which I'll talk about in a minute, accepting applications, about 2 weeks to review the applications and conduct interviews, and we'll target February 19th as the board meeting date to bring names to you for you to consider approving our recommendations for the Citizen Oversight Committee membership. This may be getting a little ahead of ourselves, but just to help paint a picture of once the COC is established, it's legally required. This might be a question you have. It's legally required to meet just once per year, but we'll supersede that and meet a minimum, beyond that 3 or 4 times a year. And the focus of that group is squarely on the use of the funds. So it's not like a design committee or anything. It's on the proper use of the funds and ensuring that they align with the stated goals and the intended use. That group will review project lists and current expenditure reports, which we'll present to them. Meeting minutes will be from that group will be available to the public for all to see in the name of transparency. Most importantly for tonight's purposes are the categories required to constitute a proper COC, and that includes a member of a local business, a member in a senior citizens organization, a current parent who is actively involved with our school's home and school club or parent group, and then 2 at-large members. There's also a bona fide taxpayer, a member of a bona fide taxpayers organization, which I'll talk about. So let's use reference sake for 2017. When we last went through this, representatives from the COC included the executive director of Campus Kids Connection as a business representative. There was a senior in the community who belonged to AARP. She only had to be 55. A parent who was active in FALMS at Main Street represented that constituency group. And then the parents as described. And so, and then we filled the at-large slots with other parents just because it kind of makes sense for a school district that's your core constituency. Let's see what else. In both recent iterations of our citizens oversight committees, and this is not unique to us, this is something you hear a lot. A challenge is typically finding a member of a bona fide taxpayers organization. So I'm not predicting that we'll have trouble with that, but I'm just saying that historically, that's often a tough slot to fill. And so you might ask, what is a bona fide taxpayers organization? So well, bona fide is Latin for in good faith. So essentially, it's a taxpayer organization without intent to deceive. That's how it's explained. Specific examples include, anybody want to take a guess? I bet you've heard of one. Howard Jarvis, yep, that's the one everybody knows. There's others, the National Taxpayers Union, NTU, and the California Taxpayers Association, known as CalTax. And so these are groups that typically have a small membership fee, and they really strive to ensure tax dollars are spent, as they said they're intended to be spent. So again, not trying to predict which slots get filled or not, but that's just historically a slot that's often hard to fill. What happens if you can't fill one? You have to do your due diligence, you keep advertising, you keep seeking to fill that slot. But as long as you've done that due diligence, you can proceed with the rest of the group and meet as a COC. So you don't have to like stop the whole thing if there's one group that's particularly hard to fill, but you keep working to fill it. So long as we do our due diligence, we can form the group. And with all of that explanation, I ask you to consider approving this resolution so that we can begin the process to build our COC.
Great. Questions or comments from the board?
Does the business organization mean a for-profit business, or could it include like a nonprofit entity?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure about the nonprofit. I would imagine a nonprofit is allowable. So if we get an applicant for somebody like that, I'll double check and research that.
CPC's not.
Are they nonprofit?
Yeah, it was our.
Well, there you
Yeah,
go.
yeah,
That
there you
answers
go.
that
Yes,
question.
yeah, good point.
Yeah, I was thinking, what about your future as our business?
Exactly.
You're an
Yeah.
organization
Yeah.
that's nonprofit, that's all about.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was
makes good, yeah.
Yeah, that makes total logical
Yeah.
sense to me. I'll do the research just to make sure that the legality matches common sense.
All right, do I have a motion from the board?
Sure, I'll make the motion to approve the resolution to establish our Citizens Oversight Committee.
All right, is there a second?
Second,
All right, resolution,
Trustee Edmondson,
aye.
trustee Gray,
aye.
trustee Jackson Miller, trustee Dickinson.
Right, resolution passes. Last, consider approval of the district's selection of Stacked Incorporated as a qualified architectural service.
So on November 20th, the board approved the district to go out for the RFQ process for architectural services. The district asked architectural firms to submit their qualifications by responding to the RFQ. The district reviewed, as a team, we reviewed all the RFQs we received to determine which firm would be the best fit for the district and our needs for this project. After we reviewed all the responses, the district determined that Stacked Incorporated would be the best choice along with their qualifications, and they match the needs that the district was looking for these projects. So tonight I'm asking if we could approve Stacked as our architect.
And I want to thank Jim for being here tonight in case there's any of those kind of questions that he can help answer.
I really hate the LCAP.
We have Kate. We have
You
Kate,
walked
too.
in after, so I don't believe you.
We can do it again.
No. Questions or comments from the board?
How many submissions did we get?
We received 4.
And was this like the clear winner? Was there any, like deliberations and?
They stood out pretty well. Especially because they're local, so that was a big one. We worked with them a little bit as well, so that was a plus too. So, yeah, they pretty much stood out.
They were all good. If I can just
Yeah.
piggyback on that. So it was really nice to have them to choose from. Some were a little bit more specific, like one was especially good at fields, which is
Yeah.
great, but we're not just fields, right?
Mhm.
And so Stacked really was besides being local, really had the versatility to handle
Yeah.
different kind of projects.
It's like
Something that stood out to me.
well-rounded.
Yeah.
Was this a bidding process? Too, did they enter a bid?
No, just qualifications. So they submitted their qualifications, their past work, and so forth.
And who chose? Like, was it a group of you who
Yeah,
Who was involved in that committee that made this decision?
so it was Scott, myself, Pam,
I was sick.
that's right, you were sick. Was it three of us or was there one more?
Steve.
Steve. Yeah. So,
Just fairly.
yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I like that we've worked with them before. Is it VJ?
VJ, yeah.
VJ, and
Yeah.
right, we've been at Maddie now, 1996, right, so I
Yeah.
like that
Good
we-
connecting the
and then-
dots.
And then, I think I saw here in their past projects, like the involvement in the shoreline. Yeah, which is.
That's a.
Yeah, so nice to have that connection, so.
I've known BJ for 10 years. He's really a genius. But yeah, and they cover, what's really great about staff is they can really offer a lot of services. Where some of these architectural firms are only do architecture and engineering stacked, hence their name, offer many services, which I think over time will definitely take part in some program management stuff like that. So it's really a kind of almost like a twofold. Yeah, they're really good. DJ comes to all the homeschool club meetings with us. There's that, right?
He's a member of the road show.
Key member.
Yeah. Very.
I do really appreciate keeping the money local.
And their office are here in SoCal.
Yeah, I think that's just great.
Super local.
Yeah, it's pretty rare.
It's rare.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're our neighbors.
Yeah, yeah.
They will be seeing our schools every day for years and years and years. Yeah, they're walking by.
All right, may I have a motion from the board?
You can make the motion to approve the district selection of staff as qualified to perform architectural services for the district measure P general obligation bond.
Great, is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, staff is approved. Great,
Thank you for coming.
Thanks.
yeah. Any correspondence? You can always email me with future agenda items. May I have a motion of adjournment?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
All
In
right.
Ted's honor.
Okay, a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? Aye. All right, thanks,
A
everybody.
lot of ground in there.
Yeah.
New art
You get the
tonight
prize.
in honor of Ted and
Yeah.
Ted's birthday today.
Oh.
I didn't want to say it on air though.